Hello and welcome. That's it. Hi. How are you? I'm fine. I hope you're doing well. I'm James Jones. John Lindemann.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
Craig Leahy.
Ahoy, everyone.
Guillaume Vayette.
I don't know what we're doing. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. I don't know.
All right,
James just seemed very unenthused, so I matched his unenthusiasm.
Look. So here's the thing. I do the same intro almost every week, and sometimes I want to mix it up a little bit.
This is what it's like to be a touring band, I guess.
Yeah, we're doing a house show right now, John.
Sometimes I want to do it acoustic, I guess, James.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about a house show where you can do weird shit because it's not on TV. Who cares?
If you want your vanilla RFN, buy the album.
Right. Exactly. Or go to the big concerts. When we got a stadium, yeah, we're gonna play it by numbers. But when we're just in like some club, we're gonna hang loose a little bit.
We're gonna explore the space.
We sure are. It's June 22nd, 2023, and we are exploring episode 828, palindrome episode. Don't get a lot of those. And we're going to start off with news today because there was a lot of news. And if you're listening to the show, you're already aware. So I'm going to start with the most important news and then we'll kind of go chronologically. The most important news was announced on Tuesday that Nintendo was going to release a trailer for Everbody 1-2 Switch.
Wow.
Which they did. The most important thing to happen in Nintendo news this week was the trailer for Everybody 1-2 Switch. I legitimately was not okay after what. John, have you seen this trailer?
Which trailer is this?
This is the one for Everybody 1-2 Switch.
No, actually, no, I haven't. I haven't watched it.
I can post a link here. I didn't actually watch it. I just read the freaking...
Lord knows I am not trying to...
So
you're not seriously considering a purchase decision on that.
Well, no, because he's already decided he's going to purchase it.
Sure.
So, what if I told you at one point I believed this was cult behavior?
It feels like that is what they're trying to suggest to us. I couldn't help but call to mind what I've seen of it, where we get a man in the horse mask,
Horace, he has a name now,
wearing the purple jacket and everything, from just the same get-up as is depicted in the cover that we've already talked about, sort of up on a table. And then you got everybody sort of like doing circles around him. It's just like this, like the Tomodachi life thing where they're worshipping the Virtual Boy or whatever.
While he's pumping his arms in the air, yes.
I have to say, I mean, there was a couple of things. First of all, it seemed quite pointed that it was coming out the day before the Direct. It's like,
you feel like maybe someone's doing the bare minimum that they can do?
Because this trailer is much more than a bare minimum.
Just that it was siloed, really, isn't it? Yeah, just like, well, okay.
Keep it away.
It's always, they've done more than we might have thought after, the way it was announced and the weirdness, the press release and stuff but then just like, okay, so this will definitely not feature in the Direct, will it? You're getting it out of the way, and
you're burying it.
The memory of this will be annihilated by the Direct the next time.
I guarantee you, the people in this trailer are having way more fun than anybody will ever have with this game.
Oh yeah, the thing about this trailer is, all right, so they flew 16 influencers to Japan. I haven't been able to identify any of them.
No.
And from all over the world to play Everybody 1-2 Switch in what is clearly a hotel conference room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they start playing it, and then Horace, he has a name now. We're given a name in this trailer. And he talks, which is actually more disturbing than I expected. Comes out, and basically this is everybody having fun? Thing, and then he guides them through some of the games.
Right, and people are not allowed to leave until they hear about this timeshare.
No.
I've seen this.
But then at some point he goes, and you can play it with your cell phone, and so can 99 of your friends! A giant curtain falls behind him, and another 84 people come rushing the stage. But keep in mind, this is a game that only has local multiplayer. They're saying 100 people can locally play 1-2 Switch with their cell phones.
So I saw that the first game they played was the balloons, and it ends with the aliens.
It sure does.
Did you see what was in between?
So yes. Everything. But mostly
in the immortal words of Patrick Stewart, I've seen everything.
So the best part is the US website is at least has content in it now, so you can like see what the game is, but not a lot. But the Japanese one has all kinds of animated images of Horus on it. Just dozens of them. And they're doing all kinds of weird shit. I'm going to put one that I stole from the website into the chat. And hopefully it will animate. They like the Japanese website is legitimately bizarre.
I'm still watching this trailer. It really has
everything.
It has real like Tom Cruise in
Respect the Cock?
Yes. It has
Magnolia?
Those kinds of in Magnolia vibes, yes. Yes.
All right, that's the web P.
Respect the horse.
So they're all web Ps, but that's okay.
I
because
like to think with this video that it's kind of like actually they weren't going to release this game ever, but they did. Like somebody somewhere fought for it and said, "Look, give me some amount of money to like come up with a promo, a sort of marketing push." And if it's good enough, then we'll release it, kind of thing. And somehow they came up with this, and this actually persuaded.
So
okay, then we'll dump it.
I just posted an image that I stole from the HTML of the Japanese version of this game's website. I want you to describe what is happening. This just follows your cursor around, by the way.
It's pretty obvious that video, I feel like they blew the entire marketing budget for that game.
Oh, they
producing
sure
that
did.
Video.
It's not the easiest thing to market, it has to be said. The only thing that I think of when I see Horace here gobbling a carrot, apparently, is the bit in The Simpsons where there's a big like drum of food in the school kitchen that says now with more horse parts.
Yes.
And Lunch Lady Doris is like, more horse parts means more iron or something. Like that's the kind of connotations that I'm doing. That's not an easy sell. So, I mean, God bless them for trying, I guess.
It's so weird. Like the market, so this dropped and the NWR Discord all basically watched it at one time and were like, what the fuck is happening? And then it just evolved into us raiding the Japanese website for animated images of Horus.
He hits the tambourine and then wiggles his ears.
Yes, he does.
I don't know how to feel about that.
I don't know.
Oh, you are entranced by Horus.
Yeah, I might be tempted to buy this game.
Under his equine spell.
Keep in mind, in the Japanese one, he's just following you around. Like, these images are everywhere, and they're just following you around. The Japanese website is bizarre. It's great, which is funny because originally the Japanese website had no content in it. It was like, this is a game. It will be on Switch. That is the end of the conversation. It's like, what in the world? I'm fast. Like there's probably 8 or 9 of these. I ended up extracting my favorites. GX at one point took the GIF of Horus eating the carrot and reversed it so he's actually throwing the carrot up, and that's very alarming.
I really do feel like to make it more sort of symbolic of the whole way that this horse thing concept has been sort of applied to this game. He should be eating a lemon. Because that is what he's trying to sell us, isn't it? I'm sure Horse would not be especially pleased to have a lemon put in its mouth, but it just kind of feels like it would sum it up a bit better.
Horus of Shelbyville.
Just the mouth just shrivels up on contact, the sourness.
Him pumping the Joy-Cons was also an absolute event. I'm deeply fascinated by this game and can't wait for the full story to come out. I can tell right now, the fact that fucking Bingo is one of the games in here is truly a testament to the depth of design.
Like the worst thing is that like one of the games is a quiz, and like I guess you can fuck up a quiz, but why would Nintendo fuck up a quiz? You know, like I want to see the quiz. Like that's the most interesting part of this. Like, well, a quiz I could see playing a quiz game with family. Sure, that's something that happens. But they didn't show that.
What
Why?
if you have 99 family members, though? You can't do that in Jackbox.
I guess.
The entire
Except
family
that you
reunion.
can, kind of.
But they'd all be lumped together as the audience. This is everybody.
I see.
If you could put 100 people in your living room to do this quiz game, congratulations, you can play 1-2 Switch. This is so stupid. I love this. I love
the
how
purple jacket and the pumping of the arms is kind of eerily reminiscent of the Joker's like Gotham Centennial celebration or whatever from '89 Batman. Like, are we sure this isn't just a ploy to get 100 people in one room and then force them to inhale green gas that is going to put a permanent smile on their face?
They got 100 people in a room and made them play 1-2 Switch. Like, that's much worse.
The gas is a sort of sweet release at that point, I assume is what you're saying.
A game that Nintendo's internal testers were like, we can't release this. This is too bad.
So that explains why Horace is just like, and where's Jackbox? He's at home washing his tights.
Exactly. Don't steal the balloons, though, when you play the balloons game. He will not take it well. Underlings may be shot.
Oh, what a bizarre, like, that is a truly weird trailer. And that's part of the joy of it. But also, this moment of, all right, so they had announced a direct, and then they dropped this, and we're like, okay, they really were just like, no, we don't want to talk about this game. Here's a fucking trailer we're about to bury in the news. So yeah, there was a direct yesterday. Horace did not feature in it, whereas
I'm fascinated with it. I gotta close this webpage. He's a fascinating character. He is.
We really were hoping
I can't
Horace.
Stop staring at him.
We were really hoping Horace would be the host of the direct. I feel like that would have been deeply puzzling, because this trailer was basically only released on their Twitter channel. But no, this was the Takahashi Koizumi joint. We did get a little bit of weirdness from that duo, but not a ton. They weren't super deeply featured. They kind of intermittently made appearances. So I have gone through the entire trailer, front to back, a couple times now, and I've written down every game in it in the order they're in with some notes. And so we'll just run through it, and you can stop me if you want to talk about some of the stuff, or if we're just good, we'll just keep going. I do want to give a quick note. I detected 3 distinct resource farming games. 2 session-based run games.
Cozy
was said 3 times.
Yep.
Yeah.
Counted.
And a lot of these cozy and farm games were already known, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah,
we've seen them in
a lot of stuff was shown.
E3.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff was shown during that, and then Switch would be, like, conspicuously not named in the trailer. And it's like, oh, gee, I wonder when they're going to have a direct to announce that this is going to have a Switch version. But in the case of Fae Farm, like, we knew it was coming to Switch because we knew it was a Switch console exclusive. This was basically just them being... A lot of this was just them being cognizant of the fact that the Summer Games, whatever, was not going to get the number of eyeballs the Nintendo Direct does. And so they just sort of said, like, yeah, we'll have it at the Summer Games Direct, but then we'll also talk about it at the Nintendo Direct where we'll get more eyes. But let's go start running through the list. Show starts off with the Pokemon Sword and Shield, Violet and Sapphire DLC. No,
Scarlet and Violet,
yeah. Fucking names. Scarlet and Violet DLC. They showed both the phases of the big story DLC for this game. But the most notable thing was this is a 4-minute trailer showing basically clips mostly from story sequences for these DLC with no voiceover and no sound effects from the game, really. Just music and video for like 4 minutes, to the point where many people in the Twitch chat for this were asking if their audio was messed up. Great job, Nintendo. Great trailer.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe
do people actually want people to? I mean, like, did they miss the Squirtle that much? I don't get it.
Normally a trailer like that would at least have somebody talking over it to kind of like talk about the game rather than just basically 3.5 minutes of silence.
Or
don't tell, James.
Yeah, well, yeah.
They didn't do
also,
either!
I guess maybe if it is going to be just like music and images, that it would be shorter. I think it's probably it's uncommon perhaps for it to go on that long while just being the juxtaposition of these cutscene images to soundtrack stuff. But
I think this is like end stage Pokemon where they don't even bother telling you about it anymore. It's just
you're gonna buy it anyway.
We know you're gonna buy it, so we don't even we're not even gonna like talk to you people anymore.
You're not worth our time.
Just take it. I'm going on a trip in a submersible to see the Titanic. I'm out of here.
Oh, Jesus, John!
Couldn't resist it, could you, John? You just had to be topical.
John refuses to let Guillaume not edit this episode.
It was tough.
Obviously, he's going to
make a pop sound in 4 minutes.
I've got to balance out talking about Monster Hunter on 3DS by being the most current this week.
There we go. To me, that was the only thing that was real. They showed an area that's like, what if you just wanted to have all the biomes in one place and not hunt for stuff? But otherwise, it just felt like, that they know you're going to buy it. Here it is.
There was, I guess, coming into it, obviously we had the whole thing of, okay, yes, we've got Everybody 1-2 Switch for June. We've got Pikmin 4 for July. And then, we've got a whole bunch of months for the rest of the year with nothing even penciled in. And, potentially, we could have some things for next year. But I guess the first things were like the DLC like this. Like, okay, how much more will we learn about those? The things that we do already know about, that are going to be sort of significant events, even though they're not standalone games. And so they led off with this, but overall it made up a lesser percentage of the presentation I was perhaps thinking, or at least less was shut, because even with the Mario Kart booster pass, we had a glimpse of that, but it wasn't like the full on thing. It's like, here's a track that's a new track you've not seen before, the whole bathroom sort of theme. And then here's 3 characters that are going to be in it. But that felt like kind of quite preliminary. We've got a while to go on that. And they totally punted on the Splatoon 3 DLC, the side order or whatever. The bit that actually, is content rather than changing the hub. Like that they had a little Splatoon 3 moment with the, this Splatfest theme is coming in a couple of weeks about ice cream flavors or whatever, and some stuff about competitive Splatoon, which is presumably different per region. But that was it, and that was a surprise to me. There's just like, okay, there's all this stuff that kind of we do know about already. You're kind of thinking, well, they'll spend some time on that, and they did, but they didn't offer a lot, and it didn't take up that much, except for this sort of conspicuously long, I guess, 4 minutes. Right,
and the Splatoon stuff, since we're talking about it, I'll just get out of the way. Europe put their stuff about the competition up early, whereas North America put it late with the Nintendo Live plug, because they're going to do a bunch of stuff in conjunction with Nintendo Live, which is also synced up to PAX West, so all that stuff's kind of aligned. In Europe, I guess they probably cut that segment because there's probably not a lot of people going from Germany to go to Nintendo Live, if I had to guess.
No, it's just they've got a Splatoon tournament, I think, that's going to have some kind of finals in Frankfurt, and also there's they mentioned a Mario Kart tournament of some description coming at some point. But that's where, there would have been a difference there. And I presume, other than that, I guess the main difference is that, the European version tends to just have subtitles rather than dubbed, which sometimes there actually is a little bit of a difference in what's said, but whether it's subtitled or dubbed.
So Takashi and Koizumi are subtitled in the European one.
Yeah.
But all the voiceover is the same person for the actual segments. Yeah. So next up was Sonic Superstars. We had already we'd seen this game at Summer Games Fest.
Well, that's the other kind of thing you were kind of expecting coming into this, is a summary of things that have been either touched on explicitly around Summer Games Fest, or as you already mentioned, James, it was just like somewhat conspicuous by their out, like, oh, there's this little carve out where, you know, it's going to go in a Nintendo Direct almost certainly. It was like all of that kind of housekeeping had to happen. So yeah, definitely Sonic Superstars was one of those, for sure. And they did it early.
It is very much a new Super Mario Brothers with Sonic, and it very much looks the part. And so it was obviously going to come to Switch, and there it was. We had our first farming game, Palia. You can farm online with this game. Looked fucking miserable. I'm sorry. I'm just so fucking sick of these farming games and these directs. Like, I know they must sell because people keep fucking making them, but this one looks so nondescript.
It's almost, this is to me is almost as bad as like the glut of MMOs that came out around 2010, where everybody thought that like, if I just have this blueprint and add these checklists, these like grocery lists that I can go through, boom, put it out. That's a game people will buy.
So this game looks like Second Life with Twee farming. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just like, I don't want any part of this. It's just blah.
So I guess you don't want a cozy life that's waiting for you?
No way. Nope.
Not this cozy life. There's a farming game that I'm more into. We'll get to that later.
I'm less cozy, more koozy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Jesus Christ. All right, anyway, speaking of conspicuous carve-outs and what we'll call Sega's worst kept secret ever twice, Persona 5 Tactics is officially coming to Switch. Now, Persona 5 Tactics leaked before the Summer Games Fest where they announced it because Sega themselves posted it.
Yeah.
and then conspicuously did not include Switch as a target platform until somebody put it on the YouTube page by accident and then removed it from the YouTube page, and then it was in the Direct. So Sega fucked up the announcement twice.
The odd thing about this is that we obviously, there it is. Like I said, kind of expecting to see Tactica, right? That's what they're calling it.
Yeah.
P5 Tactica.
Fuck that, it's Tactics.
Yeah, sure. That's almost certainly what everybody's just going to roll off the tongue, because we're all used to Final Fantasy Tactics, etc.
Because we don't speak fake Latin.
But the weird part about this is the P3, the Persona 3 remake thing that they're doing. Like, that, because again, that got leaked in much the same way that it existed. But there's still this question where it's like, well, is it coming to Switch or not? And I think there's been some retailer listings that suggest it is coming. Yep. And then again, I think the expectation was, it's a carve out. We just wait, there'll be a confirmation in the Nintendo Direct, just to kind of something to to put that in the presentation, to make both sides happy kind of thing. And then that did happen for Tactica, but not for the Persona 3 thing.
But Tactica's coming a lot sooner. It's coming November 17th.
True, so. Yeah, so it might, but the carve-out might just pay off, in September or something, because that's a pretty, like, standard thing, isn't it? A Direct in September? I think that's pretty ordinary.
So then we had, again, another game from Games Fest, Myth Force, a, quote, Saturday morning cartoon, loot-based session game, etc., 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 etc.
This at least look cool.
So it's going for that He-Man Masters of the Universe look. I do wonder, though, like, what's your target demographic when you sell it as Saturday morning cartoons? Because the last network in the U.S. that had Saturday morning cartoons as a block killed them 12 years ago. It's been 12 years since the concept of Saturday morning cartoon was a thing. So, at least in the US. So, like, who's your target for that? Like, you gotta, like, that term's come up a lot. It's probably time for it to go away. But also, I don't think He-Man and the Masters of the Universe was a Saturday morning cartoon. So,
I don't know. I can't remember.
Maybe they saw those throngs of, angry middle-aged men angry at She-Ra, the new She-Ra on Netflix. And they were like, well, clearly there's a big audience for old He-Man, and so
we have your answer.
Yep.
So there was that. I don't know. This I'm kind of also over these session-based games too. Like, that idea feels like it's been done pretty hard.
Roguelite has also been done really hard too.
Roguelites. Yeah, it's a loot-based session roguelite essentially.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like, on your next run, and I'm like, oh god.
Yeah, exactly. These run-based games, it's like, okay, I'm good. Then we hit that Splatfest Direct, as Greg alluded to. It's ice cream flavored, but because this is coming out of Japan, It's ice cream flavors that nobody would say, these are my 3 favorite. Vanilla, strawberry, and mint chip. Mint chocolate chip? No, fuck you. It's mint chip. This is Japan.
So, yeah, I guess for me, it just seems like a bit of a swerve to not have the Neapolitan trio, right?
Yeah, it's very weird. But also, the only thing of any value here is we got an X-ray of Big Man's guts during this segment and got to see his digestive system, which I didn't need. And I was also reminded that Big Man's conversation should not be subtitled. Whatever he says should just be unknowable to us, and they react to it.
We should be stuck as Link during the first playthrough of Wind Waker, where we don't understand ancient Hylian.
Everybody else understands Big Man. That, I think, to me, that was the right way to do Big Man's character.
No, and you sure said it Chewy, isn't it? And it's like, well, we have no idea what he said, but it's just funny.
Or occasionally then go, you can't say that! And then what did he say? What did Big Man say? Or it'd be like, no, they don't look like that. That's mean. What do you say about me? Do you want to have a fight, Big Man? Let's go. No, but instead we got to see an X-ray of his intestines. So that was cool. Thanks, Nintendo. But again, I mean, that was it. Basically, this was
really conspicuous by its absence on some sort of additional, because the amount of tease that they've actually had for that expansion pass that they've been selling for quite a while now, that it was like so minimal. It was just like a glimpse of one of the Splatoon 2 kind of idols or whatever, just like in this very white environment, and that was it.
What if they just never release it? What if it just never comes out?
It's coming, like I said, September could be the time for that. The first anniversary of the game there'll probably be a direct around then. I'm sure it's not far away, but it just felt like maybe at some point they had intended for this to be something they could roll into it, at least on some level. Like, not necessarily blowing the thing out or anything, but some sort of further glimpse, because it started with almost nothing. So it wouldn't take much of substance to kind of move the ball down the field, as it were, on this DLC, the side order. But no.
It feels like they gave Splatoon a spot and were like, if you manage to get something done in time, here you go.
Yeah.
After that, we got... So this is 2 games where it's like, they live for this direct. The first being Detective Pikachu Returns is real after, 7 years after they announced it?
Yeah, this really was.
I just don't understand. They closed the 3DS eShop and now they're releasing the 3DS game?
No, this
sure looks like a 3DS game.
I mean, it doesn't look great. But
James, I mean, was I the only one getting Vince McMahon vibes off of Pikachu?
Only when he had his fake mustache. And
True.
Vince's new mustache. Vincenzo's new mustache.
Yeah.
God.
His voice was a bit deep for me, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
It was very much a moment for me of, like, oh yeah, they did say they were going to do another one of those. It slipped my mind for quite some time.
I think they said it before the movie came out.
Well, because I guess it was like, they did the first one, and for whatever reason, that was, kind of picked up on as like the angle for a live action movie. And then, in anticipation, I suppose, of the movie, coming out, and they were hoping for it to do well. I think it did fairly well, right?
Yeah, it did pretty well.
Not like Mario movie well, obviously, but, more like Sonic movie well, I think,
right.
Roughly, in terms of the however many hundreds of millions it made. They've said, and we Detective Pikachu is going to be a thing that keeps going, because we're going to do another one. And then, God, that feels like so long ago. It's ridiculous how long ago that feels like.
It's been so long, and it's like, it lives. How appropriate. This is in the Pikmin 4 themed direct.
I think, that's a fair point. I think the thing the thing that tickled me the most about the track, certainly did not overwhelm with its attractiveness.
Sure didn't.
Just like Mewtwo casually levitating up over their like apartment or whatever for a chat. Like that.
Yeah. And they're relatively like non-affected. Mewtwo? It's like, this is a destruction monster that's just like floating by, and they're like, that's weird.
So it's not. I don't know Pokemon. It's not reformed or anything.
Well, I mean, it's still a genetically engineered tool of war. It's not like it's. Well, this nuclear missile has been reformed. It's a well-behaved nuclear. It's still a goddamn nuke. Yeah. So this is. We didn't get to see, I mean, I guess this Detective Pikachu. You know, if you're into this, there's going to be a demo. I think, as they said that as well. I did not. Oh no, this is November. No, this does not have a date. Then we actually had our first real significant news, which is a remake of Super Mario RPG. This is coming out in November on the 17th. There are multiple November 17th games. This is also Persona 5 Tactica. This is also retroactive number 184, and I don't remember anything about this game.
Well, yeah, the episode, whatever, but we've not done that many retroactives. Certainly not at the pace we've been doing them in the last 5 years or so. Goodness knows how long it would take us to achieve that. But yeah, it's about 09, I want to say, right? Because I'm sure I recounted this on the retroactive, but also the year before when it came to Virtual Console, because it was going to be my sort of last Super Nintendo game before we got the N64. Right. And it would not function with, we had a Japanese, Super Famicom. And of course, to play an RPG, you needed the American game, and we had a converter to play American games, and we bought plenty of them, Link to the Past and so forth. But because this was a latter cartridge that kind of used the 3 connectors on the bottom, we had the 2 that kind of the little ones that flank the main one. It did not function with the converter we had. And in the end, we just sort of thought, it's going to be, the N64 is going to be happening in a couple of months or something, so let's just send it back. And so and then I didn't play it for 12 years when it came out on the Virtual Console on Wii, which, and of course, it didn't come out in Europe officially at all.
Right.
Until then. Which was kind of good, because that meant when it came to the Virtual Console, I mean, it cost a little bit extra because it was a Hanabi Festival import game or whatever, but it just ran properly. It wasn't one of the Virtual Console games on Wii that was compromised by still being at 50 hertz or whatever. So that's how I played it for the first time. And then, I think it was like a year later, we did the retroactive on it as well. So it's kind of a funny game for me, kind of in my history of playing stuff. I mean, I think probably by virtue of the fact that I did not play in 96, I probably have more of a kind of negative view of the way it looked. So I feel like this makeover with the graphics is like, it will benefit quite a lot from that.
Yeah, because I played it when it first came out. Of course, this is the game that I played instead of Chrono Trigger. Not that I regret that, because I love Super Mario RPG, but going back to it now, I was like, I can't do these graphics now. I can't. At that time, these graphics were really cool and very different, but they're very hard to look at now. So I actually am really glad they're remaking this.
It's the same problem as like Donkey Kong Country games. They have that pre-rendered 3D models that have been turned into sprites, and they look like junk. Like if you're on a CRT, they get smoothed out by the CRT blur, but nobody's on a CRT anymore. They're on digital to digital devices, because the CRT is not digital. And they're sharp, and the pixels are sharp, and there's none of that smearing. So like these sprites were made with the expectation they were going to be smeared. Well, now they're not being smeared.
No, exactly. So when I played it on Virtual Console, you were talking about a Wii on a digital television, with like component cables. So it was it was nice and clear, but that didn't actually do it any favors in that room. I mean, the one thing that was nice about Wii Virtual Console games, I guess, is that, you could still, like, if you had a CRT TV at that point, like run them in true low res through that, and they would look really good. Through that, but I didn't have that set up anymore by 2008. So, yeah. But also, I mean, I will say, even back then, looking at the magazine coverage of it in 96, and, obviously I was persuaded to ask for it, for my birthday, I think it was, in the summer of 96. It was still like, these renders, they seem a bit off. They don't seem right. You know what I mean? Right. Like, it just, like, and I guess some of that is because of the whole isometric style perspective, and some of it, I guess, is because it's like Square and Nintendo kind of, collaborating on this. Like, when I saw the renders of, like, for the promotional art for, like, Mario 64, it's like, yeah, that's more like it. I mean, that's Mario, isn't it? Like, I mean, I wasn't wild about it. It still had this kind of plasticky, like, thing, you know, that felt like it took some of the kind of personality out of, like, the Katabe art that you would be accustomed to seeing on, you know, the boxes of Super Nintendo games like Super Mario Kart or whatever. But there was just something not quite right about it even then, you know, but I don't know whether that would have affected gameplay so much, you know, because they're obviously quite small on screen, and as we've said, you know, everything kind of blends together, or should have done back then on a CRT kind of thing. But, you know, it does kind of feel like this makeover is something that can benefit the game. And it's the kind of what they've got now. It seems like they've tried to preserve the kind of slightly strange, very squat proportions of those characters, the way that they kind of worked out, I think, but, you know, to do with the perspective and everything, but get them much closer to being on model. As we've talked about many times, you know, like the Mario characters is ruthlessly kind of, you know, perfected how they are supposed to look. And these aren't exactly that, like, is it because of the proportions, but it is very much just like take the approved versions of Princess Peach, Bowser, Mario, and, like, you know, kind of make them more squat. And then, of course, you've also got, you know, Gino and all that, the original characters in there, who, you know, they can just make them look however they want, I guess.
So the other thing that I think Kohler's the one who pointed this out is that a bunch of stuff seems like it got cleaned up by people who were familiar with the game's development. Like, there's the castle is, if you actually are in the 3D mode, or in the 3D mode, if you're in the actual in-game mode versus in the world map, the castle looks different. And his speculation was always that it was, they basically ran out of memory, so they had to use a generic texture for the castle, and so things like that got fixed. There's scenes where a character standing in a toy chest, but it's just a bunch of blurred smears, because of course it was low res. They've actually gone and rendered what those smears were supposed to be. One of which is the truck from, what was that 3D SNES?
Stunt Race effects.
Yeah,
you've got Discun, or basically the mascot of the disc,
the Famicom disc system.
Yeah.
And you've got Samus.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in there that looks like it was somebody who was involved in this game making this game what they wanted it to be, not what they had to make work. Yeah. Which is nice. And to that end, they've also got Yoko Shimomura coming back to work on the music for this game. So
yeah, it sounds, what we hear in the trailer sounds very good.
Oh yeah,
that's probably the most exciting part of it for me.
It always sounded great, but you know, I mean, the instrument quality basically is just upped. You know, from we sound very faithful renditions of, you know, some of the tunes you could hear there in the trailer, but especially the Nimbus Land one is very. We've used that for closing music before. And they kind of featured that pretty prominently, and it sounds really, really good, as you'd expect. But it's a great soundtrack because it's still early on in Yoko Shimomura's time with Square. It was after Live Alive, of course, but it really kind of shows you this kind of window into her future with both the Mario and Luigi RPG games, which naturally, you know, with her coming back on them, you know, do share quite a lot, you know, musically, but also Kingdom Hearts. That whimsical kind of flavour, that obviously Kingdom Hearts has quite a lot of different musical stylings and emotional beats and stuff. It's not as uniformly whimsical as a Mario RPG is, but there's a plenty of, like, you know, of that kind of light-hearted stuff in it, and it definitely calls to mind the Super Mario RPG soundtrack in retrospect. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And I guess just the choice of this for a remake in some ways, like Live Alive, kind of, it feels like it might have made this possible, because wasn't there that whole thing, like, with the Live Alive remake came to be because they were talking about like due to conversations with Nintendo about like possibly putting it on NSO or something. And then that kind of turned into the HD 2D remake of that. And it's like, well, there was that Super Nintendo game that we made together that also had a Yoko Shimomura soundtrack. Like, you wonder how one led to the other, perhaps. But of course, this is not a HD 2D aesthetic.
No.
It does seem like it is, like, in some ways quite faithful to the original aesthetic, but just kind of, like you said, ironing out the things that were just kind of like rough or, kind of not implemented entirely. Because I'm sure there was a pretty hard like deadline with this because Square were busy getting ready to jump ship.
Exactly.
This is pretty close to the hard cutoff of like, we don't do business with Nintendo for quite a few years after this, and stuff like that. Though, I'm sure it will benefit, but it looks to be, just a kind of, an embellishment of how it was supposed to look.
Yeah.
Yeah. Part of me is wondering if, that cuts it. If a Super Nintendo game in 2023, as embellished as it is, like you can tell that the animations are not up to par with, a game that we're going to discuss later.
Sure.
But do we know how much this costs?
I think it's full price.
Looks to be, it's like in the £50 tier over here. I've already seen on the official store, whereas stuff like WarioWare is more like £40, so that's how they do it.
That's pricey for this game.
Like, I mean, considering how deep the remake's going, I don't know that they could have afforded for it to be less than that, though. Like, they seem to really put the effort in.
And we'll have to see how they approach it from a gameplay point of view, and some of these other things, because it is kind of interesting. Obviously, it was quite seminal in a way with the kind of time button press thing. Because that
it was like the first one of those that launched so many, RPGs after it, Mario RPGs after it. But then going back to it, like I do wonder what people will think, coming to it for the first time.
It is interesting because, I mean, for me, I feel like, with Mario and Luigi, where they really kind of took it further, and it's like, especially the dodging part of it, like the kind of jumping over things, and, where you get bosses with like quite intricate attack patterns that you have to execute the proper timing, and with jumping in combination of Mario and Luigi, that's going way further than they did in Super Mario RPG, which I think for some people is probably not a good thing. It's just like, well, I would prefer to play this more like just a turn-based RPG.
We have an email about this we'll get to.
Yeah, no, and that is the question, I suppose, is that, do you kind of, because it wasn't as like all the way implemented, which like I said, I really like the way Mario and Luigi does it. I think it really kind of added, I think it could get old when you're doing like kind of more regular battles, but in terms of like adding a real sense of kind of higher stakes and danger to boss battles, I think it was really good in that case. But with it being a bit more kind of basic here, I think there's more of an argument for like, can we have an option to not have to deal with it? Because that's pretty standard kind of stuff for RPG remakes. I mean, it wasn't really featured in the American Direct, but there was a little video about the Baten Kaitos HD collection, where it talked about how your way you could like turn off battles, speed up battles. I forget exactly all the different things it would, but that is very much a part of bringing RPGs back now. Is it older ones? It's just like, if you're not really kind of desperate to fight similar battles, goodness knows how many times, like there's various crutches that you could use to kind of get past that. And I wonder in Super Mario RPG's case whether it might be a good idea to have an option of like, okay, do you want to, not just like how much you want to deal with the battles, because they were on screen. It wasn't like a random encounter thing with Super Mario RPG. Was it? It wasn't, right?
No, you're right.
But it's been, like I said, I've not played it since 09, basically.
You could initiate battles by jumping on enemies, start with an advantage. I think
all that kind of stuff that did carry over to Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi. But so it wasn't too bad in that respect in terms of the random, like where truly random battles or any of that. But, because you had some control over it. But still, dealing with the time button inputs over and over and over and over again, I can imagine there will be people that want to turn those off. So it'll be interesting to see if they give you the option.
Yeah. It is, and I looked it up. It is $60 in US. So it is a full price game.
Yeah, that feels like a lot.
It's a lot.
At $40, I would be like, man, that's cool. That seems reasonable.
Well, all right. Then we got 2 games announced in rapid succession. We got an unnamed Princess Peach game that was extremely briefly teased. That had a Peach moving through a 3D environment, but kind of in a 2.5D perspective.
It was very
specifically
play.
Yeah, it's a stage play. The backgrounds are like decor, like stage decor. You can see that there are. I don't think that we see the audience, but you can see that there's space for them. Like basically, the camera is the audience.
What I'm interpreting this as is that this is actually secretly a Dynamite Heady sequel, and it's going to be specifically patterned on the American version that just made it stupidly hard. That's the only way that a Princess Peach game could be made. It's like, well, Super Princess Peach, we're not doing that again. Obviously, that was too easy. No, that's not how we do things. We're going to make it just like a treasure game, and it's going to be insanely difficult.
We basically saw 4 seconds, which is amazing.
No, it was weird how insubstantial it was. Like, a lot of the time you wouldn't get that, but I guess it's just like maybe trying to make more of a theme out of this direct. Of like, it's a very Super Mario centric direct. So it's like
they introduced it as Mario's not the only one getting a new game.
Yeah, so it's kind of like we've got stuff for Luigi, we've got stuff for Princess Peach, we've got stuff.
We've got a movie that made $250 million that we need to make sure our stuff ties into while people are still thinking about it. We even throw in Wario to some extent, can't you? Oh yeah, we'll get there. So yeah, it kind of felt like maybe if that had not been the case, if you hadn't had this other stuff that they felt like it went with, maybe we wouldn't have seen this. But like you said, the moment with the Mario movie making such an obscene amount of money, seems like it's probably because that this was next year very explicitly, sometime in 24. Out of the filling in gaps in this calendar year. This very much felt like something you would have seen back in the Space World days, where like, oh no, there's more games coming, and this is like fucking, this is like cameo, pun not intended, degree of like, look, see, no, there's another thing coming. See, here it is. The Perfect Dark GameCube game level of tease. Like there's nothing there. That early look at Banjo when it was like Project Dream or whatever, stuff like that when it was like a pirate or something. Yeah, exactly. Like this was not something that Nintendo of even of the Wii U era would like to have shown, with the exception of the Wii U Direct, where it's like, fuck it, all we have is a trailer of Xenoblade X. All we have is an image, a concept image for the fucking Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Just nothing. Also in the coming in 2024 was Luigi's Mansion 2 is getting a Switch port. Sure. Well, the thing about this is that Luigi's Mansion 3 is in the real rarefied air of double-digit million sellers. It's still on the top 10 on Switch, though, which is amazing. That is, that's big, stuff. I mean, Luigi's Mansion 2 did big business, too. That's the point. Luigi's Mansion 2 did relatively very well, on 3DS. It was part of the kind of raft of games, that were, hoped that they could reverse the fortunes of the system, and it certainly did. Like, obviously you got to say probably Mario Kart 7 was the biggest one of those, and then 3D Land, but Luigi's Mansion 2 or Dark Moon, depending on where you are in the world, was another one of those, and then Luigi's Mansion 3 kind of surpassed that quite comfortably in terms of sales. So it fits in terms of like, you're following that up, commercially, but also, the sort of cycle of like, when 3DS was winding down, we had the remake of the preceding Luigi's Mansion there to kind of, just
occupy the release schedule and stuff.
So you're saying Switch's successor will go through its last year with Luigi's Mansion 3 being released on it?
Maybe so. Maybe this is now just a kind of immutable part of the Nintendo cycles. Like, you know, we used to think about Kirby very much coming towards the end and seeing things off. But, you know, it feels like Kirby's kind of like already like it's already like
Kirby's overrepresented on Switch.
They fired every shot, haven't they? Now I say that there'll probably be something in 24.
We'll come up with a game where Kirby's a fucking gun. Now that you've said that, this is off we can get through pretty quick. Batman Gotham Collection is coming to Switch, which is
weird.
It feels late, doesn't it? I'm sure we've mentioned
very late.
I'm sure we've mentioned it a few times over the years. Like, you know,
Arkham City came out in 2011.
Yeah.
Don't you feel like this is the kind of thing that would make sense for Switch as a kind of catalogue title, the way that, you know, the BioShock games are on there, and
in 2019
the Portal games are on there, and all that kind of stuff.
I watched this and I was like, oh, and then they're going to show the new game or something, because I was like, these are all already here, aren't they? I guess they're not.
Nope. John, are any of these old enough that we would have to be concerned that you might be in the credits and have to cite you?
I might be. I was thinking that when I was watching this.
I've seen John's name in the credits for Arkham City.
Okay, all right.
I wonder if I'm just wondering if the legend will continue.
Oh god! So wait, if anybody buys this for some reason, we're gonna have to disclaim that this is John Lindemann's Arkham City.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. I'll have to figure this out.
What's the one that people don't really like very much?
I think
I guess it's the third one. I've not played.
Yeah, it's Arkham Knight. Yeah, so this is John Lindemann's Arkham Knight.
I mean, James. I'm going to be associated with quality. I mean, how dare you? I'm clutching my pearls right now.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean,
not put my name on something.
Yeah. Nothing not quality comes out of WB Games. Well, nothing comes out of them now.
Don't touch your pearls so hard that you break the necklace and they just get strewn about all over the place. And
this isn't a black and white.
Now I'm picturing fucking Nick Cage grasping those fucking green gelatinous nerve gas things in the rock.
I was just thinking of like some black and white French New Wave shit that Guillaume was describing.
I'm describing the scene where Bruce Wayne's parents die.
Martha.
Okay.
I know they've never shown that in any of the Batman movies ever.
But you know what, Guillaume? You know how I have an immunity to that? I don't fucking watch DC movies anymore.
But it was done a lot, you know, the Martha Wayne necklace breaking is done in like Burton Batman for sure. Probably the Nolan version as well.
The Nolan version would have had, like, weird cuts, though, so it probably got hidden by some fucking nonsense camera spin cut!
I don't think so. Your memory of that film is very different from mine.
I haven't watched that movie in a very long time.
It's an old movie. I don't think I've seen it that recently, but it's pretty matter of fact, I think. It's just, you know, little Bruce gets shit scared at the opera, and then they go outside, and then they get shot.
Good. Gloomhaven, I don't really have a lot to say about it. We can just keep going unless somebody wants to talk about it.
And then we can keep going because it's Just Dance.
I'm working through it here, Guillaume. Jeez. Yeah, then there's Just Dance that went on entirely too long.
Yeah.
This segment felt like 1,000 hours.
Yeah, so it's kind of felt obligatory again, just like the obligatory, we kind of recap the things that came out of publisher events around Summer Game Fest. Like that probably was the most obligatory of them all.
But it felt like it was given too much time for how obligatory it was.
Yeah.
Then we have our second. This is our second farming game, Silent Hope. This is a RPG where nobody can talk because the king took away talking. And
took away the words.
Took away words, except for his princess who's encased herself in a cocoon of her own tears. What the fuck is this shit?
It's kind of like the opposite of Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, isn't it? Where Peach's voice gets replaced with bombs, so everyone else is still fine, but she can't talk.
So we this game has farming in it, but it looks more like it's oriented towards the run-based combat. So, the themes are piling up for that game. This one actually looked a little bit interesting, at least. I might give it a shot. We'll see. Then farm game number 3, Fae Farm. I have nothing to say about this. It looks very Fae Farm. Like it very much on the tin.
Yeah, if you want to farm, this is your...
If you want to farm and also be a fairy.
Or you get dangerously close to a killer Schwarzenegger line from Last Action Hero. Yeah.
Which one is that?
You want to be a farmer? Here's a couple of acres, and then he kicks him in the nuts, naturally.
Nice. Perfect. That's actually a great line. I don't care.
And they go flying, because it's, in the movie within the movie phase of that movie.
Yes. Hot Wheels 2 Unleashed Turbocharged, which is a racing game starring Hot Wheels cars. Some people actually seem to like the first one of these, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. The reviews seem to be tepid, or at least the ones I was hearing about.
Yeah, there were people who liked it. Nobody was like, "Oh, this is crap."
Right. Yeah,
but there's a track maker, and you can make really insane Hot Wheels tracks, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it looks fast-paced and, pretty fun. Doesn't look like complete crap. I don't know.
Yep. And then the other car game was, because there's just themes in this one, is Overcooked with Car Repair and Manic Mechanics. I mean, this is just straight up Overcooked with car. It even looks overcooked. I believe this is the game that said that it's from the makers of Minecraft, which is one of those, like, I guess that's true because I looked it up afterwards. It's the company that made some of the console ports of Minecraft.
Oh boy.
So, I mean, like, you did technically make a Minecraft.
Yeah,
yes.
that's like saying it's like Beamdog, the makers of Baldur's Gate. It's like, well, not quite.
Technically true. So yeah, that was there, but it didn't get a ton of time. Then there was the Please Play Our Game, We're Begging You segment of it with the Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope plus DLC conversation, where literally days after E. Gimmel said in an interview that Nintendo told us that it would be wise to wait to do only one of these per console cycle. We should have done that.
Yeah.
Like, days after he says this in an interview, he's on the Direct talking about fucking Sparks of Hope with the DLC content.
Mm-hmm. Well, he has to save the ship from going down. I mean, it's...
The ship that he drove... All right, first off, stop trying to be topical. Secondly...
That was actually not trying to be topical, I realized.
The ship that he plowed into the iceberg. Yes, exactly. He and his fucking brother plowed into the iceberg. Jesus Christ. There was a time where people were like, wow, I sure am glad that French media company is being blocked from buying Ubisoft. Boy, I sure took the wrong position on that. Hostile Takeover would have been great for that company. I stand corrected. Dragon Quest Monsters returns. That's not me saying it returns. That's its name. Its name is... In Japan, it's just straight up Dragon Quest Monsters 3, but this one, it's like the Dark Prince or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's a new Dragon Quest Monsters game on Switch. It looks kind of honestly, it looked a little rough. Comes out in December.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, I understand that a whole lot more resources were put into Dragon Quest XI on the Switch, but
right.
I don't understand why can't you just use those assets that you already made that look really good.
Looks like a HD PS2 game in a lot of ways. Like, it's pretty rough, and boy, the voice acting was bad in that trailer. It was real gnarly. Almost to the point where it had come back around to me being like, no, I love it.
And this would seem to be the second Dragon Quest spin-off that's going to be announced and released before we get anything more on the HD 2D remake of Dragon Quest 3 that was shown a bit ago. I guess they've got to space out the HD 2D goodness because they've got so much of it with Live Alive and Octopath 2 and Triangle Strategy. But, yeah.
And then back to our theme of, this game still exists. We got our Pikmin 4 rundown, which I actually expected to go longer than it did because they talked about it in the lead up to the Direct. By that, I mean the 12 hours before the Direct. We got some new stuff. We got to see an underground segment which is very Tears of the Kingdom.
Well, Pikmin 2.
More or less. I mean, yeah, Pikmin 2. It looks more like the dungeon runs of that game.
Yeah. We got the nighttime turns them into makes them go crazy.
It always has, hasn't it? That's the thing. It's always been like they go nuts, so you have to leave. But now it's like, no, you can stay with these particular type of Pikmin and the dog,
the glow Pikmin. Yeah,
which I remember the retroactive. We were talking about how like the Koroks seemed like they were very. In Wind Waker were very much like derived from the sort of forest sprites in Mononoke, the Kodama or whatever. Like, God, these are like even way more. Like, they're really similar.
They also look like the ghosts when Pikmin die.
Maybe that's it. Maybe they're like zombie Pikmin or something. Maybe that's what they're the only ones that can survive at night in this like fucking Thunderdome that happens once the sun goes down.
In the trailer, they would disappear and reappear. Like, are these ghosts? Are we dealing with Is this like the ghost army from Lord of the Rings? What are we doing here?
Yeah, kind of the green glow.
Yeah. And then we got to see an indoor section.
Yeah, so the indoor section is suspiciously well maintained, considering that the notion seemingly has always been, this is some time after humans have,
yeah, that's always been the thing.
Vacated the planet.
Yeah, that's always been like the problem with the Pikmin mythology, right? Like the people notice that when you look at the planet, like you can see that it's like if the continents keep what do you call that? They keep drifting. So like in millions of years, that's what our planet will look like. So this is set in our far, far, far future.
Look, Duracell wasn't going to pay to have their battery in there if they brought it away to nothing.
But the fact that, like, okay, I found a Dole banana, like I guess they just grow with stickers now, like, I guess like in millions of years. Yeah.
My theory is the reason why the indoor environment is so suspiciously well maintained is because this will be the long desired crossover with Chibi Robo.
Hell yes!
Chibi Robo there's a bunch of Chibi Robos out there that have been just keep cleaning the houses even though there's no people anymore.
I've been demanding it for so long. It's finally coming. Mm-hmm. I honestly, these franchises belong together. I'm more convinced now that I was right than ever, and I've always been convinced that I'm right. But yeah, it was actually kind of a conservative rundown. I expected them to give more time to it.
Well, I guess the big thing, they said your demo would be coming about a week after the presentation, so a few more days after this goes up. So, that's your kind of next point to consider people actually get to try the game. And then, of course, there was the remasters as well. That was and it's available now moment for the presentation.
For 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So you've already bought them, haven't you?
Yeah, just went. I don't know. Like, I guess I'm a sucker, but I just went and got them immediately, and then I saw like, I could have waited September, got in the physical version, but
they're doing that again, like with Metroid Prime, but like with a bigger lag, right? Because Metroid Prime was it's out right now, February, and then the physical was March. Whereas, like you said, this is like 3 months later. The physicals.
My guess is that they didn't have a retail product for shelves in September, and given it's that time of year, they wanted to have something to put on shelves.
Yeah, we had an email about the gaps, didn't we? That are still there, and that would certainly make some sense of just there isn't anything else that's going there, so that's our physical launch for that month.
This is a pain to retailers who are gearing up for holiday sales. Something you can't put digital games under a tree.
Yeah. So I played maybe half of the first Pikmin. It's still a good game. I don't know, like, Soren in the Discord said, like, I hear this is based on the GameCube version. I'm not sure what that means.
Rather than the new play control?
Right. All the improvements that were in the new play control version are here. You can select your Pikmin, and there is limited motion control. You don't have pointer control, but if you turn on the motion controls in the options, and there are not a whole lot of options for the game. When you are holding down the A button to prep to throw a Pikmin, while you're holding that down, you can use motion controls to adjust your aiming.
My favorite.
And that's it. Yeah, that's all that it does. So it's still a fun game. I'm still really enjoying it, but it was I think that 3 was really where the series came into its own. 3 stopped the whole thing of you see now there's like water, there's a bridge, and your Pikmin, they don't fucking know how to cross a bridge.
Bridges are hard.
I guess, but yeah, there's no way to just send them like, please don't go in the water. Just follow me on this bridge. And then they all drown. So okay,
I remember this came up during the Little King story retroactive of characters just drowning themselves. And it's like, well, that's not helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's not very fun. I just, because then like it's all about micromanaging, right? Your Pikmin just, I guess I need to leave my red and yellow Pikmin over there where they're safe. I'm going to bring only the blue ones. They kind of suck at combat, but they're all that will survive the trip to the enemy. So let's go. But like I'm harsh on it, but it's still fun, and it's fun to revisit. But some people were saying like, oh, this is just a month before the Pikmin 4 comes out. I wonder if it's gonna kind of eat away, cannibalize the sales. And I think no, I don't think it will. I think it will make people.
My concern about it becoming out a month before is more that people are like, I'll wait till Pikmin 4.
Yeah, it just feels like it should have come out like 5 months ahead.
It's going to affect the sales of the old games. Because the problem may be, I mean, for me personally, right, like I would quite like to play Pikmin 2 at some point, because I did play New Play Control Pikmin on Wii. It's still ages ago now, right? Like it's more than 10 years quite comfortably. But it was, a revisit of that game. Pikmin 2 I've never revisited. So I played it a lot in 2004 or whatever that was, 2003, I forget. And then I've not been back to it. So I would like to play it, but I'm not going to do that now. Because you've got Pikmin 4, which is probably going to be...
It's a much longer game than the first game, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's just like, I could wait. We got the demo in a few days. I'll probably give that a go.
Yeah.
And then, I'll play Pikmin 4 in all likelihood, unless there's something really, really troubling in the reviews. It's given how much I enjoy Pikmin 3 in particular, it's just like, I really can't see me not wanting to try Pikmin 4 for myself. And then the problem becomes for people like that are like, well, I'd be interested in Replay 1 or both, but the new game is coming, so I'll just do that. Do you come back to it later? Once that kind of has, it's not a new thing anymore. It's not and it's out right now, which is obviously they see some value in that and they keep doing it. They did it with Metroid Prime Remastered. And does that impulse just leave you at that point after you've played Pikmin 4 and then you just, that sale's gone? That's what I worry. I wouldn't worry about it affecting Pikmin 4 sales.
I could see somebody just on impulse buying 1 and 2 and then going, when 4 rolls around, going, I'll come back to a little bit later.
It's possible, but I would have thought it's not a something that's going to be a big, when you're talking about statistical, of piling it all up. I can't imagine it would be something that really eats into sales in any significant way.
I hate to say this in front of the number one Pikmin fan, but Pikmin by Switch standards is already working on the margins.
Well, it's it's it got into the multi-millions, right? Pikmin 3 Deluxe, It was like a couple mil or 3 mil, something like that.
But that's not impressive on Switch.
No, it's not. But, I don't think, ultimately, whoever is... whoever has any chance of being interested in playing Pikmin 4, I don't think they're going to be deterred by playing Pikmin 1 and 2 first.
By and large, I really don't think so.
Because
the difference in quality between them is so vast.
But they're not going to know that if they're neophytes to the series.
I think it's very obvious.
Well, if they've never played.
Yeah, but you launch Pikmin HD and you can see, oh, this is a GameCube game. Oh yeah, this is 20 years old.
But you're thinking as somebody who's informed. I'm talking about somebody who's not.
I'm saying it's obvious. It's more obvious than you think. You might think
99% of people are idiots, Guillaume. There's your fact.
I suppose
I
so.
just would have thought looking at screenshots
what I'm saying,
and all that kind of thing would be pretty obvious.
I just like to remind everyone as often as possible that 20 years ago is longer than you think.
It is ridiculous in a way, isn't it? When you think it's just
you have good memories of the GameCube. Sure. You might have thought like those games are fantastic. They stand the test of time. And to that I say,
No, but it really hits you though. For me, it was just like we're at Pikmin 4, right? That's the new 4, and then it's like, oh, how long ago was the first one? 22 years.
There are adults that were born, after Pikmin 1.
They haven't exactly been racking them up at some, incredible rate. Is the point of like, it's obviously Pikmin 3 was a very protracted process to get to that, and then Pikmin 4 has been all that. And then some, really. It just, for my money, I just think, it would have made sense for them to come out a bit earlier. Obviously, when you're talking about hundreds of thousands or millions of units, there's going to be effects in both directions. But the predominant effect is that you're going to do yourself out of sales on those older games, on the remasters, rather than you're going to be doing yourself out of Pikmin 4 sales.
I just can't imagine playing a Pikmin game and going, you know what I want to do? Play more Pikmin. And so I feel like putting on a Pikmin game, like it feels like one of those games where it's like after you're done with one, especially if you play fucking 2, that game feels like it never ends.
Yeah, I agree. 2 is my least favorite for sure. But I've had that. I've had the opposite experience playing 3. Like I played 3 and I was like, you know what? I need more Pikmin.
But they're not going to be playing 3. They're going to be playing 1 and 2.
Right, but I mean, no. But I think, like to Greg's point, I think that there is a chance you might finish playing Pikmin 4 and think like, you know what? I'm going to play Pikmin 1 and 2. Like now I've got a taste of that. There's nothing quite like these games out there, and I've tried the stuff that kind of looked like Pikmin but was not Pikmin, and they're not Pikmin. And so, like if you need that fix, then you could do worse than going back to Pikmin HD.
And of course, the physical release will be after the Pikmin 4 because it's in September.
I just feel like, inarguably, the timing here is fucked up in a way that I don't understand.
It's odd to me. I really feel like, when Metroid Prime came out would have been, about right? It's 6 months. That would. So what the hold up was there, or what there, if there wasn't a hold up of any sort when it was purely discretionary, what the sort of rationale was, I'd be intrigued to know because it's not immediately obvious to me.
Yeah, clearly I'm an outlier, like given the Pavlovian response of seeing like, and it's available right now, and I just went and bought it and, played it while I was supposed to be working. Clearly, like
you're
most
no better
people,
than me, Guillaume.
most people won't do that, but anyway, like I feel like maybe like this announcement, like they managed to get people like me who are like, ooh, Pikmin right away, sure, and then in September they'll manage to maybe sell to people who played for the as their first Pikmin game, and then who might be curious to see what the older games were like. Not as good is the answer, but still fun.
We also had a bit more sort of like multiplayer sort of details with Pikmin 4. That was the other thing. They showed this whole sort of thing of like fighting over like a fallen space person.
So I thought that was a bad guy.
Exactly. No, I think it's they did not mention multiplayer, Greg. No. I think that this is
screen bit.
I know. I think it might be against
the Dandori battle, which I can't believe they fucking called
the second
it that.
time I watched I thought like, oh, and now they're showing multiplayer stuff. Karen's not really into versus Pikmin, so I wasn't paying too close attention. And then I rewatched it, and I realized like, wait, this might be part of the main game.
I watched it today.
I assumed it was a concept that's like in the game, and then there's a multiplayer version.
Maybe,
of it
but I don't.
There's a split.
But they haven't
with split screen. This is not fucking
so
Super
Greg,
Mario
I watched it.
Kart.
I watched it for the third time today. They do not say the word multiplayer during that segment.
But why would it be split screen? It fucking is not
because they're
Super
insane. They're making a Pikmin game 23 years later. They're already dealing with fucking nonsense. This is the game that was almost done 900 years ago, Greg. Don't apply logic to it.
I mean, maybe it's split screen for the same reason that when you play against a CPU in a Puyo Puyo game, you see the opponent's screen.
Because you don't want to make two distinct depictions of Dandori battle, and so you just make it split screen regardless of how many players are involved. Don't apply logic to this game. It's apparently been stuck in a time warp for 8 years. Oh.
And there was skill tree stuff, kind of
for the dog.
Kind of buffs to your mount, Ochi, the dog, or whatever. You could sort of give it better skills and stuff. That's not really something we've seen such an explicit kind of RPG style element to Pikmin before.
I don't understand why they went with Ochi for the name and not some kind of Yoshi pun.
It's pretty close though, isn't it? I mean,
no, you gotta get the Y in there for it to work though. Like it just has to be there.
It's Louis. Yeah, it doesn't have the J of Luigi, but we still get the point.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ochi feels like much more of a stretch. There had to be something closer they could have come up with. What a miss. What a miss. Pikmin 4, disaster of a game because of that miss.
Sure.
All right. We got, again, one of those things that was at the Games Fest but wasn't shown for Switch. Now it is. Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1 has MGS 1, 2, and 3 original versions of those games, plus Metal Gear 1 and 2, plus the NES Metal Gear, and plus, of all things, fucking Snake's Revenge. Because Kojima ain't here to stop it.
Yeah, you can't be offended by it because he's not in the company.
And some motion comics. I mean, this seems like a pretty and a strategy guide. This seems like a pretty comprehensive collection, and it's an impressive put together for Volume 1. I can't wait to see what they put in Volume 2. I bet.
Yeah, maybe Ghost Babel. That would be nice. Like they never really re-released it.
If they're not going to put it in a collection like that, put it on NSO for fuck's sake. Like, do one or the other. Because Konami have got a bad record with some of this stuff. It's just like with the Goemon games. You know what I mean? Like, okay, it wouldn't shock me if they're not going to do a Goemon collection because the thing's been dead for decades. But you know, put them on the NSO then. You know what I mean? Like that's what that sort of place is for. So yeah, but I mean, the Game Boy Metal Gear could easily be the sort of thing that would be the analog to Snake's Revenge. But presumably a better game based on everything like that in the Volume 2 collection that presumably will have MGS4 and 5 and Peace Walker.
I don't think it'll have 5 because 5 is gigantic.
There is the issue of file size. That's already an issue with this.
Yeah,
isn't
you
it?
have to download 90% of the content of this game.
Even with these games, which were originally much simpler than the later games, but certainly I think there's already sort of suggestions from the website that those are the games that will be coming in the second volume.
4 has not been on anything but the PS3, so that would be interesting.
Yeah,
I would hope
that kind of you kind of feel like it at least should be more available for people. Although I don't think it's that kindly looked upon in retrospect relative to how it was reviewed at the time. But it would still be nice for more people to get the chance to look at it anew.
And I think you have to put Peace Walker in there because it's an important bridge from 3 to 5.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's part of the, kind of the older Snake, sort of the prequel era from the 60s in the Snake Eater onwards kind of thing.
It explains the building of his mercenary force, which 5, because it knew a bunch of people didn't play Peace Walker, immediately dismantles his mercenary force and rebuilds it again because, people might not have seen that get built the first time.
See, this is the terrible legacy of PSP not being a bigger deal in the West. You know, if PSP had been more popular, we wouldn't have to have narrative contrivances like that in a Metal Gear game of all things. Truly a terrible cost.
They could have just gone the Tears of the Kingdom route and just ignored it.
Yeah, it's a very Nintendo approach.
Hey, boss, didn't you already have a platform full of soldiers? What? No. Peace Walker's great. I love Peace Walker so much because it's got all the kidnapping of MGS5, but in closed spaces. There's no kidnapping of like rhinos and shit, so it's not quite as good. But you know, whatever. Vampire Survivors, adding couch co-op, coming to Switch. Cool. Then we had the creepiest game in the Direct, Headbangers Rhythm Royale, which it looked like that guy who used to do the DSiWare art animations. I'm blanking on what his name is. Guillaume, do you know what I'm talking? Yeah. It looked like his pigeons that he would have dancing to the point where he should probably file a lawsuit. But it's a mini game rhythm battle royale. They know they look like penises, right? They're pigeons. Like, they know, right? They had to. Yeah, this game looked bad.
Yeah, like there's one bit where they're playing a 2D game. It does look like his designs very, very, very much. So I want actually it's to the point where did he work on this maybe?
Yeah, I was wondering because the scene when they're dancing looks a lot like his design.
Yeah,
but if not, he should probably reach out to a lawyer. Then we have a game from the makers of Sonic. Oh, what's the name of that? Sonic
Mania. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Penny's Big Breakaway, which is a 3D platformer with yo-yos.
It looked kind of interesting, though. There's just the very different, the kind of locomotion of the character in a 3D platformer compared to, what we're going. Obviously, it's not the most popular genre. Is it, you don't get that many of them. We get more today because indies will, kind of make some. But this kind of looked pretty interesting. Keeping things it's graphically quite streamlined, it looked like, in terms of not that much detail, kind of very stark graphics. But I think it's probably because you are seemingly capable of using the yo-yo, moving through the environment at pretty considerable speed. So I think they probably trying to, especially on Switch, they're got to keep it relatively simple, presumably, to have the movement be smooth.
Visually, it kind of reminded me of a Dreamcast game, where there's not a ton of texturing on the polygons, but there's a lot of polygons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it looks interesting. It was a pretty short trailer. Then we talked about it, the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe 5. This is your PD Piranha, Wiggler on Wiggler Wednesday, and Kamek from Mario Kart Tour.
Of course, the funny, I can remember this in the build-up to Mario Kart 64, when I think at one point it was called Super Mario Kart R. That's what they were calling it at one point. He was on the level select. He was going to be in it, and I think Wario was the character that took his place. So he's getting in all these years later. Finally, obviously, I mean, he was already in the mobile game, as you mentioned, but still.
We also saw, as Greg mentioned earlier, one of the 4 tracks. It's a bathroom for giants, which means canonically there's a race of people who are giants in the Mario Kart universe. And Mario and co race around while they're just trying to go to the bathroom.
Well, it's another one in that sort of almost a series of Mario Kart tracks where the scale is changed, isn't it? The toy track that was a Mario Kart, I think a Mario Kart 8 Wii U DLC track it was like an interpretation of one of the GBA ones, I think, and it's this is as if all the Mario Kart races are toy sized and they're in a children's playroom. It's another one of those, basically. So, yeah, it kind of continues the theme, but yeah, with the
But I mean, let's not look at the perspective or what's the word? Anyway, the differences in size too much in Mario Kart and scale, yeah, because if you look at the the public, like the audience for these races, and you realize that those toads are huge, you might have trouble sleeping after that. You know, like, what the hell is going on here?
Giant toads demanding that they watch people having shells pelted at them while going very fast, at least if it's like at a decent speed class anyway. Yeah, so it's a strange one. I guess it does open the possibility though, like a Pikmin track would be like really natural for a Mario Kart DLC, because they already do this like scale thing anyway for some tracks, so why not?
If it
doesn't happen now, I don't think it would happen, ever.
But if it's not this
it's
wave.
like Min and Smash Brothers, you know, like it's
the moment.
Pikmin would get in just because they happen to have a game now. So
or like ARMS getting into the DLC, like with Ultimate. It's like,
Well, like, first off, please put respect on Min Min's name. She was the right character, and she has pasta for hair.
She won the ballot, I think, pretty emphatically, as I recall.
And a bowl for her head.
Would you say she won it handily?
No, she won it.
No.
Period. Japan loves their fucking popularity polls. I don't get it. They make so many game decisions based on popularity polls when we get the worst characters. But not this time. They got it right this time. Star Ocean: The Second Story R is a remake of Star Ocean 2. It's weird. It's got like modern, what you'd expect from a modern remake of a PS2 game's graphics for the environments, but the characters are like weird 3D pixel art.
The sprite art, but it's very much like this was something you saw really kind of in that 32-bit era, right? Where it's like, okay, so there were differing approaches. You had Final Fantasy VII, where it's like, okay, let's have polygonal characters on a pre-rendered static background, very much like Resident Evil would also do, a different genre. But then you had the other approach sometimes, where you might have real-time environments and sprite art characters. And so it's kind of like extrapolating that to today, where it's like, okay, so now the real-time environments, unlike what they would have been back then, they would have looked relatively sort of primitive, low poly, wouldn't have had fancy lighting and texturing and all that, but with the same kind of, 32-bit sprite work running around them. It's really kind of, I guess it's a little bit like the HD 2D thing, but more of a kind of less unified, less cohesive, more weird, which I guess in some ways, considering, so we've seen the HD 2D thing done quite a bit at this point, I find it more interesting.
This looks, this makes sense to me now that I'm looking at images of the original game. It seems like this is the type of graphics that they had. So what they did was just, modernize it, make the 3D environments look much better. But the 2D sprites was already a thing in the original, and they kind of, a little bit like Live Alive, I feel like they kept the spirit of it, while making everything look much, much better than it did.
Yeah, they made a choice on this game, and I don't know how I feel about it. Like, it definitely caught my attention as a consequence of that choice.
Yeah,
but
it looks unique.
Star Ocean 2 is a well-regarded game that isn't one of the games that everybody... Oh, yeah, I played that game. It had relatively low market penetration despite being well-regarded. So... it's a good choice for a game to remake. It's an interesting
They already
choice.
did the first one, right? Like,
they did,
so,
yes.
And that's it did not look like this. But I guess some of that is probably maybe a function of the original game to some extent. But yeah, I think that's why this kind of, opens some eyes, is because it doesn't feel like it's just a logical continuation of what that first remake looked like.
Yeah. So, or maybe the first remake didn't catch attention. So this is like, okay, what can we do to make this more?
They had a bit more budget, but it's very much in the Tales kind of gameplay model, right? Because it's some of the
battles are real time. You issue commands. But it's still command based. So it's about there's clocks running everywhere. Hey, WarioWare's back. WarioWare Move It coming on November 3rd. It's very much feels like a spiritual successor to WarioWare Shake It.
Well, no, Shake
Smooth
is the
Moves, you mean.
platformer. Smooth Moves. Yeah, that's the weird thing, is that title is like going to make people think Wario Land Shake It was the title of the actual WarioWare game, whereas it was the name of the platformer game, but the Wario Land game. But just when you thought the release of Everybody 1-2 Switch couldn't be more baffling, this comes along, and it's like, well, no, isn't this like the good one? Isn't this like what people might actually play with their Joy-Con and hijinks and all that? Like, I was not expecting this at all. So, because obviously the sort of multiplayer WarioWare is not that far behind us, that they already released, and so especially with the Do 1-2 Switch, like a party game, this year, heavily based around motion controls, because that it really does seem like it's a pretty direct sort of continuation of what they had on Smooth Moves, but just with Joy-Con, which are better in terms of more nuanced motion sensors than, especially like when you're trying to work the nunchuck into it. Perhaps did they have any? It's been ages since I played Smooth Moves. Did they have any where the nunchuck was involved?
No,
or was it just
I don't
the
believe
Wii
so.
remote? Yeah, so they just used the Wii remote, but of course it was the original Wii remote. It's not Motion Plus, so it really
didn't properly track when you put it on your nose.
The accelerometer, was not doing anything nuanced enough to know that you were doing the elephant thing. It was just you had to do it in front of other people.
Are you big cheesing? We have to rely on the honor system to know for sure.
Yeah, so
the big cheesing honor system is our name, by the way.
Even though it was not kind of multiplayer in the way that the most recent WarioWare was, about like actually having, multiple playable characters on screen at once or anything like that. It was very much multiplayer in terms of, the whole point of you doing silly things with your Wii remote doesn't really work by yourself, does it?
No.
The whole point is you're debasing yourself in front of someone else. Or
it's a shame game. But yeah, I'm always down for more WarioWare. And the last WarioWare game on Switch was fine, but I didn't love it. So
I'm sure I articulated this when we talked about it on the show before, in terms of I quite liked it. I think more than quite a lot of people did, but I still would say like it is almost inarguably not as good as other WarioWare games, because like they've made this kind of trade-off for like, okay, well, to have simultaneous multiplayer, with different characters on screen, you've got this additional layer of an on-screen character having to kind of do, whereas the purity, the elegance of WarioWare is just, see something, do it, do the input, not move a character to do it, and so it's just like, presumably with this, you are going to have that kind of pure WarioWare experience again, which I think obviously, a lot of the fans of the series, that's what they love about it. But it is also interesting when you think just how little, like, when you can say last WarioWare game was different for that reason that we've already mentioned. And then WarioWare Gold was a compilation. This is like, how far are we going back? You are going back to Smooth Moves, right? Like, you are going
new
back
content.
to
something that's like from what I can see, it's very little is coming back except maybe the nose picking game, which
it's
has
always
to be in WarioWare for some reason.
Yeah.
It's not a WarioWare game if you don't pick noses. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But there seems to be a wider range of movements than Smooth Moves, because as we've said, like the motion controls are better this time around, so I guess that allows them to do more.
You can kind of like do some of that stuff for real, you know what I mean? Like, so to speak, and more stuff, presumably. But I thought it was cute. The thing they showed, presumably the kind of 9-volt game where you are kind of mimicking low poly Super Mario 64 Mario, holding his arms out in the slider level, going down the slide in Princess Peach's castle. Like that is a good reference. Like that, a good synergy with actually what you do with the Joy-Con. So I'm sure that is one of the better ones to show off in a trailer, because it is such a good fit. But hopefully there's more like that.
Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Victory Lap segment. where they only announced so Greg, as you mentioned when we talked about Amiibo, yep, there are 2 more Amiibo coming, Zelda and Ganondorf.
Yeah, I thought it was possible we would get more, especially probably based on, how well the Link one did, and it probably did quite well considering all the kind of enthusiasm around the game. So yeah, not a surprise. Personally, I'm sure this is not like a majority opinion. I would kind of prefer the Gibdo Ganon, the Mummy Ganon, than the beefcake one. But
I get it. But at the same time, like I kind of feel like this segment mostly just existed to victory lap.
I mean, you kind of felt like maybe we'd get like a DLC announcement or something, where it's like buy it now and get a T-shirt, and then the actual content will come later. But not yet. I guess it is still early, even though it's been like 6 weeks or whatever. It's just such a massive game.
All they had to say was it's been. You can explore Hyrule like many of you are doing right now. So I get it.
Yeah, but I mean, they did have the DLC was up front with Breath of the Wild, right? Like we all knew, like even just coming into the game, but then
at launch they acknowledged it existed. Let's put it that way. This game they didn't.
The Switch T-shirt and all that, that was all the things. It's still a little surprising.
It will exist.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, even though I could scarcely think of a game that needs it less.
Well, I can't think of a game that needs it more because this is the only one that's going to potentially sell it to 20 million people.
It's that part of it is true, but there's so damn much of that game. It's just,
but you know what? There's so many people. Oh God, it's ridiculous. It's to the point of like I don't even know what you would want to make this game about, and the answer is about making more money.
That's exactly. No, it has to happen. It has to happen. But
yeah, so that's coming. Just know. And then we got our big. I feel like I missed a game here.
No, there was the event for the Nintendo thing.
Okay.
But then, yeah.
I just feel like I missed a game
Live.
somewhere in the rundown of the show, but whatever. All right.
I think we wanted to skip it.
Okay. But then the big one, we'd have a 2D. The rumored 2D Mario game is coming this year. Coming in October. Super Mario Wonder. And I'm going to say...
Super Mario Brothers
Wonder.
It does sound kind of awkward, doesn't it? You almost feel
Extremely.
Like at some point it was Super Mario Wonder. And then they're like, yeah, but this is a 2D game. We need to have the brothers in there no, this is not like Odyssey. This is not like Galaxy. It's like New Super Mario Brothers, so we've got to have the brothers in there, and so but they still went with Wonder, so you get this weird kind of compromise title. Obviously, that's entirely my speculation, but that very much feels like that.
So
I gotta say, now that the playable roster is expanded to include various colored toads plus princesses, Super Mario Brothers, like the title doesn't really fit anymore.
Yeah. It's just like we've got to connect it to the 2D games. That's the thing. That's really the important bit. Is that it's side scrolling, it's 2D, but that doesn't work as a title, does it? So it's like, well, brother, although obviously it's not a clean sort of separation because Super Mario World was a side scrolling game, although that was in Japan called Super Mario Brothers 4. So. I guess in Japan maybe that the separation does work a bit more, but yeah, it's not ideal. But I mean, this is they peddled new Super Mario games for the better part of a decade, so they've never been that on it with them. He gave us the brilliant title of New Super Mario Brothers U. I mean, come on.
Honestly, New Super Luigi U might be worse.
Yeah, because obviously, no brother, like the brothers was like sort of like, crossed out, wasn't it? Like Mario Brothers was crossed out and Luigi was drawn in.
So So to get to the actual game here, so we have a new art style, although it didn't really present super great on like on screens on like a laptop screen.
Yeah, it's like you said, I think compression is not great for a game because obviously it's quite zoomed out. Compared with like third-person action games in 3D or whatever, the characters are, must be quite small on screen. If you're going to have a kind of at least a platformer that can become quite fast-paced at times, and some of the things they showed seemed very aimed at that. These like conveyor belts and things on roller skates and stuff. So the characters need to be a small portion of the screen, otherwise you're going to feel like you're playing Metroid 2 or something. But then when you compress that and put it on a stream, it's not necessarily going to, come forth all the kind of extra sort of the little touches and personality that they seem to be trying to put in here beyond what the new Super Mario Brothers games did. I mean, I don't think it's a like absolute clean break aesthetically from the new Super Mario Brothers games. I think you kind of, if you see, I mean, the thing is, obviously you had the DS original, which kind of felt like it was, a bit of a low budget, like we're just like nicking assets from Super Mario 64 DS and like putting them in this side scroller. It really didn't feel like something that had the highest production values, frankly. And then, alright, with New Super Mario Bros. Wii kind of like formalized it, New Super Mario Bros. 2 almost had no new assets at all. To be honest, like it was just because it was very hastily made, it pretty much took everything from the Wii game and put it down to the DS the 3DS resolution and everything, and had some new. There was some new backgrounds, right? Like those kind of weird warp pipe stages that had the kind of line backgrounds and stuff, like they were new, but there wasn't much new. It was really New Super Mario Brothers U that had a bit more personality. Like they started to okay, we can put more detail in there. It's a HD game.
Sure.
We can have a bit more flourish. This is kind of like, that 10 years have passed. You can almost imagine there have been like games in between, and they've got, each one has taken it a bit further away and given it more personality, and now we're here where we've got these kind of these backgrounds that look very surreal and sort of like much more kind of dramatic use of lighting and just weirdness, these big hippos rolling all over the place, and it definitely is more interesting to look at than any of the new Super Mario Brothers games were.
But even the sprite models, like I wasn't getting into the weirdness yet, but the sprite models have this kind of like almost from somebody compared it to like the old Nintendo Power Clay Mario look to them. But on the smaller screen I was watching the Direct on, it didn't present, and so it ended up looking very New Super Mario Brothers until
there
they
was
zoomed
one
in
bit
on
where they actually zoomed the video in on Mario going into
you
a
could
pipe.
see it.
It felt like they knew this, and they were like, okay, let's get in closer to show people a little bit better, just for that reason, exactly.
But yeah, so this game, as Greg alluded to, gets very, very fucking weird. It's like they basically told them we need to make another 2D Mario, and they're like, okay, but we're going to do whatever we want. And then they just kept showing things to see what they could get away with. So you pick up the Wonder Seed. And then the game gets weird as fuck. And then you pick up the Wonder Flower and it goes back to normal.
It's basically Mario on shrooms, pretty much.
Pretty much. Like they did have
I was going to say, it's the touch fuzzy, get dizzy logic taken to the extreme.
But they did have the good sense not to make it from Wonder Mushrooms, because then that would have been way too on the nose. But yeah.
There would have been questions. Yeah.
Like the very first thing he picks up, all the pipes start freaking out. And like,
they get eyes and they start like doing the worm,
Yeah, in the dark world, the trees go up and down as he goes up and down.
But so does he.
Exactly.
It's like a little bit of
and elongates.
It's a little bit of that DKC Returns like silhouette aesthetic at one part, isn't there?
Yeah, or even Super Mario Brothers 2.
But instead of like jumping, he just gets long. It's like they took Long Mario from Mario Maker and made it worse.
So weird, that one.
It's really haunting. We go through a whole bunch of things. Mario turns into a giant ball, and the flowers all talk and chant "roll, roll, roll" as he rolls over things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm trying to figure out what the angle is with those. Is it going almost like, Yeah, because in Super Mario World and Yoshi's Island, they kind of had the thing of like those boxes that you could hit and it would explain things to you,
right.
Which I guess they hadn't really had before in like, 1 through 3 to kind of explain some particular stage gimmick or, some idea. Because obviously with Mario World, they introduced things that were a bit more complex, like, you could find a key and there's a keyhole somewhere in the level that has an entirely different exit or stuff, things they hadn't done so much, in other games, I guess, or they were just worried that people would be confused by them. So they had these, boxes that you could hit to explain stuff like that to you, I guess. But the funny, I played it in Japanese, so I never knew what I said. You could still, figure it out for yourself because they were very good at making things that are intuitive, right? Like that is the whole ethos of Super Mario Brothers. Everybody always talks about the first level of the original game, how it's essentially teaching you how this, new side-scrolling platformer works without saying a word. So it seems a bit odd in some ways, these flowers talking at you, but I'm not sure, some of it just seems to be like flavor text or like encouragement.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because they seem to have really cranked up the animations and the level of detail, and so it seems like they've been making the games more and more cartoon-like, as much as for a while, and now I don't know. This is even more, pronounced. It's even more of that. And so I kind of wonder if it's just a way to entertain, and nothing more.
But I also wonder if it's kind of stealthy, they've got that, but then it's you could use it as a vector to explain the weird stuff that's going on as well. It's like something weird's happening where the level is transforming or the characters have transformed, that it's like they could just, without it being a block that you have to elect to hit with your head and then the game stops and the text appears on screen. It's just delivered kind of instantly, do this, glide or whatever, they show it, don't they? Like the characters have got the giant caps and they kind of float down as you might if you had the cape in Super Mario World, or the raccoon tail,
the squirrel,
or the squirrel suit in the new Super Mario Bros. Yeah, so it just kind of maybe they fear with this weirdness and this kind of dynamic element that they've got here, that especially for a game that's going to be aimed at a huge breadth of players in terms of experience and age, that on the younger and inexperienced side, people might be like, okay, what the hell is going on here? It's just is this thing that's this device that's there to just give almost like a WarioWare style prompt, you know what I mean? Right. Where it's just you jump or whatever, at the start of a WarioWare game, but just to say, look, just go with it. Just don't worry about it.
It's very, very weird, and this trailer starts out normal-ish enough and then immediately gets strange and doesn't stop at that point. It goes for about 2.5 minutes of just them topping themselves with weirdness. The first is just the pipes going up and down once Mario gets the thing on a weird background, and they're spraying water like a fountain. There's a hint of weirdness when the piranha plant gets out of the pipe and chases Mario. But then we get full fucking nonsense. Just a giant inflated, I can't remember what the name of the fish is, with the spiny ones.
The cheap?
No, the one that have puffer fish, essentially.
Yeah, I know.
I think they're literally called spiny.
Rolling around, crushing things. Mario turning into a ball himself. As Greg mentioned, one of the pipes is on its side and starts inching along like a worm, and while Mario rides it. Flowers are talking to Mario. There's weird effects going on.
At some point, Mario has got some sort of silkworm on his back as well.
Yeah, Luigi does it.
It's on the cover.
Luigi on the cover has one. Yeah.
Huh.
We saw Daisy having a pushing contest of a pipe with an enemy.
Yeah.
Which means the pipe can be pushed, and they're both pushing it. Is Yoshi a playable
Daisy is
character?
apparently Yeah, Daisy's apparently stronger than the kind of the football-like enemy.
Yeah, it just almost looked like a charging chuck type of enemy, but without the helmet on. But and then the Yoshi thing is interesting because you see Yoshi being used as he was used in New Super Mario Bros. Wii and U as a power-up, a mount. But then we see a glimpse of 4 Yoshis on their own.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if it's not... Yeah, I think that maybe, this is like a one-off level.
Yeah,
like you just get to all become Yoshis.
So they did mention that the different seeds will transform you into different things. What if there's a seed that transforms you into Yoshis?
Well, they did it with Odyssey, didn't they? I mean, it's a late game thing, isn't it? But, you can just become Yoshi in that.
Yeah.
So rather than just the usual riding him around like Galaxy 2.
You can also become a taxi cab in that game.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. It's not as if Mario games haven't been weird before this. Let's be clear.
No, but this is just openly, visibly weird.
It's more psychedelic.
Surreal.
It's more surreal, definitely, openly so. So it's I don't feel like it's some sort of entirely is out of character in any way, but it just feels like, especially with the sort of additional visual kind of flair and verve that they've added to it, they're really cranking it up.
So the last and one more thing shot is Mario having one of these seeds come out. He picks it up and he turns into Elephant Mario, which is an elephant a bipedal elephant wearing Mario's clothes, which means we're going to have Elephant Daisy.
An elephant Toad, I guess.
There's a very real chance the last boss is Elephant Bowser.
Yes, because that is very much a thing, isn't it? The Meowser with the cat suit. Oh, that was actually 2 for 1 because he was using the double cherry as well.
Yes.
So I mean, it has become very much kind of a staple of Bowser using your stuff against you.
We're going to get Elephant Toad versus Elephant Bowser.
I got to say, there was an interesting sort of point, because as we said, it was a kind of risible thing about the new Super Mario Brothers multiplayer games, where it's like, okay, Mario, Luigi, Blue Toad, Yellow Toad. Like, what was that about? Why would you have to? Because it just makes it harder to keep track of when you have 2 characters that are almost identical, apart from the spots on them. Like it was an absurd choice on just a practical level, but. Now, I think in some of the promo art or some of the cover art, so it's like, okay, we see Yellow Toad. It seems like Yellow Toad has survived. And, yes, there we've got Princess Peach, we've got Daisy, possibly Yoshi as a discrete character. But then there's also, in this artwork, a picture of a Goomba wearing a Blue Toad hat. What is that about?
I don't know. It's so weird.
The Blue Toad has been killed, and now the Goomba's walking around with a trophy on his head.
Good for him.
So it's the Shao Kahn sort of Goombas or something.
There is a lot. Like, I've watched this trailer 6 or 7 times, and every time something comes out where I'm like, I didn't catch that before. This was a lot to digest visibly. Like, we dealt with Wario Train earlier during the Wario Direct, or the WarioWare part of the Direct, where Wario's face was on a train with arms, arms coming out of it. And I was like, well, that's the weirdest thing we're going to see today. And then this happened, and it's like, nope, I was very wrong. This did lead to Wario being grafted on Thomas the Tank Engine, that puppet Wario specifically, so he was already plasticky faced. But I made that a couple days ago. So Wario Train is just floating around. But yeah, this is I mean we have a major 2D Mario game finally originally for Switch.
And also just the first one in we talked about this when I was talking about playing New Super Mario Bros. 2 for the first time in ages recently. It had been so long, it had been since the end of 2012 since you had an original one, and yes, the New Super Mario Bros. U plus Luigi kind of deluxe package is a over 10 million seller. I think it's closer to 15. So, I mean, it had to happen, right? I mean, it's baffling that it took this long in many respects. And, we all thought, again, something Mario for this holiday season seemed likely, even though obviously it's not the most exquisitely sort of synergized with the film. It just kind of seemed like, well, it's been, whether you went 2D or 3D, it's been the same length of time as, from like Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, as it would be to a new 3D Mario and Odyssey. So that was somewhat on the table, but of course there had been, the Bowser's Fury sort of thing, like there'd been something 3D Mario, and seemingly maybe, an experiment that they got so far with and kind of, decided they didn't want to kind of go forth with as a full-scale project, and then released it as that kind of sweetener to the 3D World port. So that always tilted it in favour. I think the existence of that, you've tilted the odds in favour of the 2D game being the thing to do. And perhaps, when they do get to doing an entirely sort of original 3D Mario platformer again, it arguably might be a better fit for a new system, to have them to perform the same function that Odyssey did for the Switch. So, we may not be that far away from that game, but maybe the 2D game, especially, and this is, harsh in a sense, because like New Super Mario Bros. U is really, really good, especially when you consider the Luigi package, the Luigi DLC as part of the package. It's a really good game. But, I would imagine internally in Nintendo, it's always going to be associated with, we bet a lot on that with Wii U, and it was a disaster. So
right.
They probably are going to be, again, wary of holding over, new Super Mario Bros. Wonder as like the big thing for a new system, with that experience having been there, that maybe just as well as, again, these games have done big numbers. New Super Mario Bros. Wii was massive. Tens and tens of millions. I forget, it might have been nearly 30. It was huge. Yeah. And then even, the port on Switch, big numbers. But maybe they just don't think it's what you launch.
15.41 million, Greg.
Yeah, huge. But maybe they just think not what you launch a system with. So it's a nice thing to actually kind of enter this kind of final phase of Switch with.
Yeah, and this is a great holiday game because one, it's still going to be riding high off Mario's pop or movie surge, and two, it's it's the kind of game that people would buy as Christmas gifts for kids or families because it does have multiplayer. Like this does feel like an evolution of New Super Mario Brothers rather than a new style. But
especially timing wise, I mean, the big games coming out this Christmas are very different than this,
right?
So. You got stuff like Starfield and stuff like that, where, if somebody wants
Spider-Man
something
on the same day, right?
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2 for PS5.
Yep.
Yeah, same day and date. So it would be, but yeah, John, to your point, it's going into a crowded field, but it's still a one of one.
Yeah.
And it's still got the power of the movie. I mean, that might be around the time the movie might make a cable premiere. Like it might be on TV. Mm-hmm. Which would be the opportunity to put ads for the game alongside the movie. This is where pure Paul marketing starts to kick in. You're like, okay, what can we?
Isn't it Paul John marketing? At this point?
Well, I mean,
or is it
John? Jonketing, I believe it was. So
yes.
Your name has become a verb.
Yes.
It's something that one does.
Surprise! That hasn't happened already, Greg.
Obviously, no one could do it the way you do it, but I think it does suggest that it will become a sort of discipline unto itself that one day.
Right. There will be books written about jonketing.
The master's degree in jonketing will be very much a thing.
The zen of jonketing. Which might also, which would be the episode title, except we've named 2 episodes in a row after you, so I can't do that a third time.
I gave you end stage Pokemon. That's all I got for this episode.
You know what? Guillaume raises a good point. Why not? Why can't I do that?
Why not go for the trifecta?
I mean, you went with 2 in a row, and like apparently that was not too far. So why would 3 be too far all of a sudden?
Well,
Seems
no, so I
very
think
arbitrary.
it was too far. And it's like that. So I'm just it's like, do we just keep going beyond that ledge? I don't know. I don't know. I'm pretty happy with the big cheesing Honorson system. So I think maybe we'll hold to that. The Elephant Mario was definitely a thing I was not mentally or spiritually prepared for. I'm probably still not.
It was big on the internet. I mean, it blew up on the internet. Of course, everything like
this.
Yeah.
I mean,
my theory is that PETA is responsible for this. Because remember, when PETA called out Mario for wearing fur,
yes,
and Nintendo had to come out and like, no, these are not costumes. He's transforming into a raccoon. Or a tanuki,
it's magic. Like, it's not actually being clad in the pelts of dead things.
Yeah, dead cats or anything like that. So like maybe like they were like, okay, let's make it overt. This is not a costume. He's turning into a fucking elephant.
It's as James said, it's bipedal. It's not even faithful.
Right.
That's true.
So I think what we need to see the Daisy version of the elephant wearing lots of wearing specifically tiger fur. And so when PETA asks, no, it's not synthetic fur. We killed many tigers to make this fur. Many of them. Because the elephant's king of the jungle now. And we just she turns to the camera in her tiger skin dress, and the flowers say many tigers were killed to assert her dominance in the jungle. And then the flowers stop talking, and she proceeds on through the level. Done. Fixed.
Yeah, that's just nature.
Yeah, that's just standing up. That's just standing up for your... I mean, would they rather that lots of endangered elephants get killed? No. So, there we go. Nature finds a way to turn your predators into couture. So overall, this was a weird direct. Like, there's a lot of stuff. Greg, I mean, we hit it. Like, this is a lot of stuff that's like, these are things that were at the Summer Games Fest, but we didn't mention Switch because this direct was coming a week or two later. So,
yeah, I guess that's the thing. This may become kind of a time-honored pattern if it seems that, Summer Games Fest is just gonna, somewhat replace E3 and whatnot, this kind of, because 40 minutes is on the longer side for directs, but in some ways it almost felt like maybe there was a little bit less in this because it was a not trivial amount of it was dedicated to essentially sort of collecting and summarizing things that we already knew about from recent publisher events. So, that might kind of somewhat diminish its impact for some people, I guess. The other thing, I suppose, is just how Mario-centric it was. Which, again, not a shock, given the moment with the movie and everything. But, it didn't necessarily kind of spread the love around in terms of all the various sort of, Nintendo properties. I guess if you were holding out hope that this would be the time that you'd see something from Metroid Prime 4, considering, they did do the remaster that has come out, so there was some sort of movement down the field on that. Well, it didn't happen, so if you're not that jazzed about a bunch of Mario spin-offs and all that, it wasn't the one for you. Although I must say, of all the characters to kind of get blanked in this, that was a surprise. DK. I feel like we've been sort of preparing for this DK renaissance or whatever for a while with the, because they're going to have the expansion at the theme park, and he was pretty heavily in the movie and stuff. And it's like, Luigi, Princess Peach, Wario, everybody's getting stuff apart from DK.
Yeah, or why not put DK in Super Mario Wonder so we can get DK Elephant?
Well, it can't be ruled out, I guess, because it does feel like they've at least got a much more liberal attitude than I'll just put a different colour Toad in. And, they're not going to, it's a good few months yet until the game comes out. They're not going to give away everything in that. It was sensory overload as it was, because there's only so much they can put in there.
I'm overall though, like, obviously WarioWare is cool. Super Mario Brothers Wonder. God, that's awkward as shit to say.
He's gonna. I think my brain certainly, is gonna autocorrect it to just Super Mario Wonder because of Super Mario World. Like that
Right.
was like really my first Mario game that I played, properly. And so like it's intrinsically etched in my head. Like there's no way I'm not gonna just correct it to that, even though it's incorrect.
Oh.
I might say Super Mario Brunder a few times.
There you go.
I apologize.
You know what? No, I'm fine with that. Super Mario Brunder is the new name. Other things that stuck with me, Big Man's digestive system.
Where's the big man amiibo?
Did I miss that? I thought he was just standing in front of a TV that was showing random stuff.
During that segment where they're talking about eating, there's a tube that stretches from where his mouth is and does some turns and then goes down to where what do fish have? Is it like a cloaca where it's everything out of one exit? I don't know. But if they didn't intend for it to be his digestive system, they really should have reconsidered that particular drawing in that moment.
So with the continuing appearance of the Amiibo, I'm surprised that the whole trio of what are they called again? The deep cut or whatever. Like they haven't been given a box set or whatever because it feels like. Well, I mean, obviously their equivalents in the preceding games had ones, and it just seems like, well, you're still making these things, so you may as well. But maybe when we do get more details on that side order DLC, it could be a time to do that. I don't know.
That's true. That could be the moment. So yeah, that was the direct. What were we doing time wise? We are at 2 hours. Wow, I didn't think that was going to take that long to get through. Yeah. Any other wrap up thoughts then?
No, I mean it does feel like we're towards the end of this console's life, but they still got a bunch of stuff to release, of course, but might be holding back a few things. Some people seem to want Metroid Prime 4 to show up. I'm not surprised that it didn't.
I'm wondering about that, if that's going to be next console fodder.
I would have thought so.
It would have really been the direct of like, no, these games are real if it had Pikmin 4, Detective
Prime
Pikachu
4,
2, and Prime 4.
Especially when about Prime 4, you hear that its development was rebooted or whatever.
Oh well, it was. I mean, it was
rebooted a long time ago.
That in itself was a long time ago. But again, I mean, it's just like they would never normally be in a position where they felt the need to admit that. But they dug their own grave on that, and so we just know all that stuff that we just shouldn't know. Like,
but you also haven't heard anything about it.
No.
So, meanwhile, you have 2D Mario games dropping out of nowhere.
But which again, I mean, it's like, that's the thing, where they seemingly, most of the time, when they kind of are doing things right, they can keep these things under wraps until at least very near to the moment of announcement, or possibly right up to it. But yeah, they just, that nonsense with like, oh well, we can't have Federation Force type backlash again, so we've got to reassure everyone with a numeral that this thing is going to happen one day, even though we've got no particular, actually anything etched in stone of how it will happen. And then,
we would have less in hand than we did when we announced SMT Crossfire Emblem.
It was like aspirational, wasn't it? I mean, it's very silly. But I think, something like that, Prime has not been, a commercial juggernaut in its life, the 3 games. I mean, I think the first one did pretty well considering A, what it is, and B, it was for the GameCube. And, the third one did okay because it was on a console that was actually popular, but it's not, none of them are blowing the doors off. So you might think, this is something that, where you've got a property where it has more cachet than it does actual commercial appeal, they tend to get spotlighted more at the beginning of hardware's life. where, you know, like, because they think maybe people, we said this stuff like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and, you know, like, people are more willing to give something a chance that they've heard of, but have maybe thought it's not for them, when you've got a hardware that's relatively new and not yet drowning in games, which obviously, good lord, the end of Switch's life, I mean, you want to talk about drowning in games. They've sold 1 billion units of software, and there's just more of it all the time. You know, if you did Prime 4 at the end of Switch, it would be amidst a flood of stuff, and maybe you wouldn't get any of those, you know, kind of people that are curious about it, but not necessarily thinking it's their sort of thing, going out of their comfort zone. Whereas maybe you would, but of course, with new hardware, of course, the risk is that you forego, you know, selling it on something that is definitely popular, the Switch, selling it on something that may or may not be popular with the next console. We've seen that before, where it's kind of like, oh, actually, we thought this, you know, was going to be, you know, obviously the Wii U, you know, like you thought, you know, something like Pikmin 3, yeah, it'll be popular this time, you know, it'll have a much better chance than GameCube, and then it sold about half as well as GameCube's. You know, these are the risks you take, but I think it does make sense if they hold it over at this point.
Yeah, you guys, like, so the fact that we didn't see Metroid Prime 4, you guys were saying that the timing of Pikmin HD before Pikmin 4 was weird. I think it's the timing of Metroid Prime Remastered that's weird. Now that, you know, like, what was that release for? Like, was it to test the waters? Like, it was a title that had been rumored for such a long time. Yeah, I guess so. But they had been sitting on it for a while.
No, I don't trust any of the rumors anymore.
Oh, okay.
So,
it seems possible that that's true.
It's possible, but also it's possible that people who said that are full of shit and should be ignored at all times.
Yeah, I don't think we should accept it as, you know, the gospel truth or anything, but
I feel like Metroid Prime Remastered should have been accompanied by something about Metroid Prime 4.
Or for that matter, I mean, you know, like I said, again, you think of it, obviously this is afterwards, but, you know, like the Pikmin HD remasters certainly sounds like they're, you know, decent enough, right? But, you know, they're pretty straightforward. They're much more in that Super Mario 3D All-Stars kind of vein.
Yes.
Of a HD, up-res remaster. Yeah, all the work that went into Metroid Prime Remastered over and above that, which is very obvious if you actually play the bloody thing. It's almost not acknowledged, is it? Because, you know, it was just dropped in the middle of a direct, exactly like the Pikmin remasters were, you know, and it's called Remastered. It's not like a, you know, kind of very, like,
Metroid Prime HD.
It's not like a very evocative name of like how much the graphics have actually been, like, improved and redrawn and all this stuff. Like, it does feel like it was done a little bit of a disservice the way they handled it, and then there isn't any, but you could understand that if it was in service of something else, of something bigger, right? Or like a bridge to Prime 4 or something like that. And at least to this point, there's no evidence that that's the case. So I think that's why I can understand what Guillaume's saying there. I mean, but then again, we would expect, you know, certainly one more direct in this calendar year. So, you know, I guess there's still maybe something to wait for them, but yeah, I'm still like, I'll believe it when I see it.
I look at it this way: of that game is doing business on its own, and that was all they really needed it to do. It was like, we have a slot here, we can release it. Yeah, it might help juice up the Metroid name a little bit, but they just released Metroid Dread not that long ago, so it wasn't like, oh, this franchise has been fallow for a long time. I think it was just like in pursuit of money. Let us put this game out now when it has limited competition, and that seemed to do quite successfully.
Yeah, it was actually one of the months where they did already have a game, because it was the Kirby remaster of the sequel. Well, sort of HD remake plus new content deluxe package of Kirby's Return to Dreamland. So, you know, it's sort of similar in one way, but also, you know, quite different, because Metroid Prime is, you know, rather a different proposition than a Kirby.
But its physical release slid to the next month, so they didn't beat each other there.
That was March, which otherwise had the Bayonetta spin-off, which I like a lot. I think it's quite a good game, but essentially may as well have not existed. All the dent it made in the sales charts is very much getting into if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to play it category.
Right. Speaking of which, the DLC for Wonderful 101 also launched today, I believe. So.
Yeah, that was actually in the Japanese Direct. They showed it very briefly. Yeah, there was relatively more discrepancies than I'm used to looking at the Japanese Direct.
Yeah, they've really smoothed that out for the most part.
We glimpsed quite a few games that they didn't bother showing, in the... Or at least certainly the European one. I've not watched the American one as well.
There was the spin-off. There was the game that looks like Goemon.
That's probably the most interesting thing because we had known about that before. Good Feel,
right?
The company that was spun out of former employees of Konami had worked with Nintendo obviously quite extensively. Kirby's Epic Yarn, Yoshi's Woolly World, Yoshi's Crafted World, Wario Land Shake It. They had said years ago, I think it was 2020, there's obviously we used, I think the president of the company, was involved in the Goemon games going way back. And so it's we've got this, this concept art and stuff for a Goemon essentially. And then, 3 years go by, you have no idea. I've totally forgotten that happened. And I really like Goemon games. I own many of them. I really do totally left my mind entirely. And then, it's for a brief snippet, but it's in the Japanese Direct, and it's got things. Goemon's been a lot of things, right? It's been side-scrolling platformer. It's been, kind of more like an adventure game. There were RPGs on the Famicom, top-down stuff, all sorts of things. But this kind of just looked like a third-person kind of action adventure thing.
It also seemed like it was frantic, and there's lots of weird stuff in it.
Yeah, projectile game, a lot of kind of gun shooting or whatever. So that was a really interesting thing. But then there were other stuff like that. The upcoming Mickey Mouse Illusion game, they just had that in there for a moment. Even though, again, we've seen that in directs in the past. We know it's coming next month. I think it is. They could have surely just had glimpsed it in the other direct, but for whatever reason, they kind of had that in the Japanese one. So a few more discrepancies than I'm used to. But for me, the eye catcher was that Goemon thing. It's I'm just glad it still exists. And more to put the Good Feel are still making stuff, because it does seem like the working relationship with Nintendo is not what it was. Crafted World seems to have been the end of that to a fair degree. They've already had something with the Monkey Barrels game, that they did themselves, and now this. I would love for it to be a commercial winner. I have my doubts that it will be. And, when you have, a lot of these studios that in the past used to cooperate with Nintendo regularly, sort of going down, like Vanpool, that did, the Dylan games with Nintendo and stuff recently, shut up shop, essentially, wound down. I do worry about a Good Feel, because they've made some games that I really, really enjoy. Those side-scrollers are excellent. So I hope that this is something that can be a success for them. But the Wonderful 101, it's the Wonderful One, they call it. Right? Because it's just the kid, in a side-scrolling action, format. And I think, was that one of their Kickstarter or other crowdfunding goals?
I think so.
It's one of their obligations. They how much they needed to or whatever, they decided to go that route for the Wonderful 101 remaster, and in doing so, as has happened to other developers, sort of imprisoned themselves with obligations for extra stuff. And so they're finally getting around to that. So I consider I do have that game, so I don't think it costs anything, even though you can get it standalone. So I'll have to check that out sometime.
I think standalone it's $9. And I think, I don't know. There's definitely a $9 price tag attached to it in one listing on the eShop. So, all right. Well, I think we're pretty much going to call it there. I thought maybe we'd get to the email, but we're already past 2 hours, so we'll just go ahead and wrap it there. So, a couple things. One, if you missed last week's episode, we had some issues with our podcast feed. It's been resolved, so you can go back and listen to last week's if you didn't hear it. It's pretty timeless, so it's not really impacted by the Direct. But one of the things that happens is I beg for emails because we really need emails. We got one email this week. I need emails, please.
Yeah, what's going on, people? Come on.
I don't know. It is actually weird. Like, it's been noticeable the last month or so. There's been a drop-off. So, rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. That's rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. Please, emails. Send them to us. We want questions, thoughts, comments, prompts, even weird, dumb games you want us to play. Like, email makes the show go sometimes. So, please, send us what you got. Plugs. So again, we mentioned this last week. This week we mentioned this last week. There was an episode of the Radio Trivia Podcast Edition, TYP's show with Johnny on it. I still haven't listened to it yet because this week's been nonsense. Normally in the second week we give away a game. Greg, are you
I'll say this. Let's compromise that you haven't heard it. There's one of the games is from the Final Fantasy series. I'm going to say that, and it'll be up to you as the listener to guess. I think. I mean, I haven't even played that many Final Fantasy games directly, but I've certainly heard the music a lot because it's great, and I've played multiple theatre rhythm games. They're not the Switch one yet. I do need to get around to that. But I think it's pretty obvious that when it's like, yes, this is Final Fantasy. The trick is guessing which one.
Which one?
And I will say, if you've been listening to episodes recently, of this podcast, it might provide a clue as to which one it is.
Yeah, we can call the end of our show practice. And then last piece of pluggerations that I've got, the Warriors series continues on apace. And by that, I mean, I said I might not hit my target for Sunday before this episode comes out, but the feed protected me, so I did. This week's episode was how to make $1 billion by making Mario Kart Warriors. This one was pretty dumb, even relative to the Punch-Out Warriors one. I'm just going to tell you now, it's a downward slope. These don't get better. They get weirder. And the next one is really... It's really going somewhere. And the one after that, I need to make revisions based on the 1-2 Switch trailer. That's all I'll say.
Oh, well, I mean, with the Mario Kart Warriors, the central challenge is like, well, what could we have that's specifically Mario Kart? That wouldn't just be Mario Warriors. And that leads us to Pink Gold Peach.
It does. The Pink Gold Peach narrative arc is included in this particular article. This one's pretty long, too. This is I make a joke about, I've used up all my ability to use unordered lists to pad out the article, but this is a really fucking long article. It wasn't until I was done reading it, I'm like, why did it write it so long? I will say the next one up, specifically it has a section devoted to discussing the fate of what was once HBO Max and is now just Max. So that might give you some idea where this one's going. So if you're interested in the follow-up business implications of how you make a Warriors game after Mario Kart Warriors makes you $1 billion, and maybe also in trying to evade taxes, I'm going to go ahead and say this Sunday's episode might just be for you. Also, maybe if you like the producers, I just thought... Because that's the route we're heading down on this one, boys. And then the one after it, my bullet points have already been revised because I feel like I need to get Horace in there. So,
I mean that is the other explanation for everybody's 1-2 switch. Everybody 1-2 switch.
Right, it's all just a tax scheme. It's
all a write-off, and it is very much the producer's angle of just like...
What if it's a fraud? So, this next one is very much a companion article to its predecessor. So, I've got 5 of these queued up on the site, so 3 more weeks. I'm not sorry, but I have notes for 11 others. Am I going to use all of them? No, because a lot of them haven't hit the threshold haven't got enough bullet points where I feel like I can flesh out an article on it. but I've got 11, and that's horrifying.
There's the ones that don't get used are going to get clipped into a binder with the sticker saying Paul Jonketing on it.
Exactly. There's one where every time I start on it, I just go like, God, I can't. I just fucking can't with this. I'll give one away that I know is never gonna happen, which is Toad Warriors. And there is an audio clip I edited of just a Toad soundboard, and it's just me hitting him making that ah! noise over and over again as his neutral B attack. I'm like, imagine listening to this for hours at a time. And it's just that noise playing over and over again. It's like, no, I can't. I can't make an audio drama episode of this particular production. These take long enough as it is.
I see you got a sort of a full range of Mad Max photoshops, the Toad Warrior, Fury Toad.
I didn't start making. God, I didn't start making any of the images for that one, but I did have notes for what I wanted to do. There are usually some custom images in these too, so it's not just a text medium. There's jokes on jokes, and like I said, it's gonna get dumber. It's gonna get real dumb. So, you can also go check that out. But it's time for us to wrap this show up. Greg, what is our end music for this week?
I thought something for Super Mario RPG might do well, given that
Makes
was
sense.
one of the highlights for me was hearing the new arrangements in that snippet there of the remake. But I do really like the original versions of the soundtrack. We've used it in the past a couple of times. I think I mentioned the Nimbus Land thing. Obviously, we closed out the retroactive with some Super Mario RPG music all those years ago. That was like a remix of the Forest Mushrooms theme that kind of became like a motif that Shimomura would keep working into places in the Mario and Luigi series and stuff. But what I'm going to go with is Still the Road is Full of Dangers, which I think we heard a tiny little bit of. One of the quicker snippets of the kind of the new instrumentation for that. But it just kind of encapsulates that whimsical, bouncy feel that so much of the soundtrack has. Is great stuff.
Cool. All right. Well, on that, it is time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.